Good morning, everyone.
Bem-vindos ao Investor Day da
Welcome
Lojas Renner
to
S.A.
Investor Day
Eu sou Fabiana
2025.
Oliver,
I'm
responsável
Fabiana
pela relação com
Oliver,
investidores.
Investor
Nosso evento
Relationship
está
Manager.
acontecendo de
Our
forma
event
híbrida,
is
portanto, meu muito obrigada
being
a
held
todos
in a hybrid
vocês que vieram
form.
aqui
So thank
até
you
a
so
nossa
much
casa em
for
Porto
coming
Alegre
here to
e a
Porto
todos aqueles que
Alegre,
estão
and
conectados
thank you
online.
all who are online.
O evento está ocorrendo,
So
o evento está sendo
this event is
transmitido
being streamed
simultâneo
with
para o
and
inglês,
simultaneous interpretations
gravado,
being
e as
provided. It will be
apresentações em inglês e
recorded, and
português já
the
estão
both the
disponíveis
English
no
and
site do evento.
Portuguese slides are available on
Na
the
manhã de
RA
hoje,
website.
vários
This
executivos subiram
morning,
aqui ao
we have
palco
had
para
several
apresentar para
executives
vocês a
here
nossa
to
estratégia,
present to
as nossas
you our
ambições para os
strategies, our
próximos 5
ambitions
anos
for the
e
coming
como
5 years,
queremos alcançá-las.
and how we're going to get there.
Bom, aqui está a agenda de como
Well, this is
estruturamos a
our
manhã de
agenda, how we
hoje.
put together this agenda
E
for
no final da
today.
manhã, após a
And,
apresentação do
and
Daniel,
in the
teremos uma
end,
sessão
after
de
Danielle's
Q&A.
session, we're going to have a
Para os
Q&A
que estão
session.
presentes aqui,
For people who are
basta
here, of
levantar a
course,
mão e
just raise your
teremos
hand,
uma estrutura
and
para
we're going to
responder
have
as
we'll be able
perguntas.
to answer
E
your
os que estão
questions.
conectados
And if
online,
you're
basta
online,
clicar no
please
botão
just click
Q&A.
on the Q&A button.
Convido agora
Now,
o
I would like to
presidente do
invite
Conselho de
the president
Administração,
of the Board
Carlos
of
Souto.
Directors, Carlos Souto, to come to the stage.
Bom dia a todos. Opa,
Good morning, everyone. Oh,
melhorou?
too loud. Better now?
Com emoção.
I was so
É uma grande
emotional today.
honra
It's a great
recebê-los no
honor
nosso
to have you
Investor Day.
here in the Investor Day
Importantíssimo para
2025, a very
reafirmarmos a
important
essência
moment
da
to
cultura
reinforce the
de
essence of the
encantamento da
culture
Lojas Renner
of
S.A.,
Lojas Renner
construída sobre
S.A., which
transparência,
was built upon
disciplina
transparency,
e confiança.
discipline, and trust.
Valores que sempre
These are
norteiam
values that have
nossa
always
relação com
guided
o
our
mercado,
relationship with the market,
juntamente com uma visão de
along
longo
with
prazo,
a long-term
moldada por
view, which
décadas
is
de
shaped by
decisões
decades of
pioneiras e
decisions,
liderança
pioneering
que
decisions,
consistentemente
and a leadership
posicionaram a
that
Renner
has
à
consistently
frente
placed
das
Renner
tendências
ahead of
do
the
setor.
trends in the sector.
Nossa trajetória
Our
no mercado de
history
capitais
in the capital
começou em
market began in
1967 e
1967
atingiu um marco
and
histórico
reached
em
a
2005,
milestone in
quando nos tornamos
2005
a
when it
primeira
became
corporação
the
brasileira
first
com
Brazilian
100%
corporation
das ações
whose
negociadas na Bolsa de
100% of its
Valores,
shares are negotiable
consolidando um
in the
capital
stock
totalmente
exchange.
pulverizado.
In the capital is
Esse
fully
movimento não
pulverized.
apenas
This
transformou a
movement
companhia,
not only
mas
changed
também
the
inspirou
company,
o
but
mercado
has also
brasileiro.
inspired
O
the
ano de
Brazilian market.
2025 é
2020, the year
particularmente
2025 is
significativo.
particularly significant.
Celebramos
You know, we
60 anos
celebrate
de história
60
e
years
20
of our
anos desse
existence and
marco no
20
mercado de capitais
years of
que
this milestone in the capital
redefiniu nossa
market,
identidade.
which redefined
Uma
our
história feita de
identity. A
ciclos de
history which has been
transformação,
marked by cycles,
evolução constante,
transformation, constant
disciplina para
evolution,
crescer
discipline to
e
grow,
coragem
and
para
courage
inovar.
to innovate.
Sempre ancorados pelos
We have always been
propósitos sermos
anchored in the
referência em
purpose of
moda
being
e
a reference in
lifestyle no
fashion and
Brasil,
lifestyle in Brazil
encantando clientes e
by
promovendo
making clients
moda
happy and
responsável.
promoting responsible
Desde que
fashion.
assumi o papel de
Since I
presidente em abril de
joined the board as a
2024,
president in
ao lado do nosso
2024
vice-presidente
with our
Jean-Pierre
Vice
Zeroux
President
e dos
Jean-Pierre
demais
Zeroux
membros do
and
conselho
all
de
the other
administração,
members of the
Juliana
board of
Rosenbaum,
directors,
Chris
Juliana
Eddington,
Rosenbaum, Chris Eddington,
Andrea Rolim,
Andrea
André
Rolim,
Castellini,
André Castellini,
Marcílio Pousada
Marcílio
e Adriano
Pousada,
Seabra,
and Adriano Seabra.
nosso foco tem sido
Our
claro:
focus has been very,
fortalecer a
very clear
estratégia,
to strengthen the
preservar a
strategy, to
cultura
preserve the
e
culture,
garantir a geração
and
de valor
ensure the
sustentável
generation of
para
sustainable
todos
value
os
to
stakeholders,
all
sempre
stakeholders,
apoiando a
with
nossa administração e a
with
nossa
our we're always providing
companhia.
support to our
Atuamos com
administrators and the company
independência,
itself. We are
rigor,
independent, rigor,
responsabilidade
we're
e uma
responsible,
perspectiva voltada para o
and
futuro,
the perspective geared
guiados por
towards the
nossos
future,
valores e
guided by our
alinhados
values
aos
and
mais
aligned
altos
with the
padrões de
highest
governança
standards of
corporativa.
corporate
O
governance.
papel do
The
conselho
role of
é
the board
garantir a
is to
continuidade
ensure
e o
the
crescimento
continuous
sustentável da
growth,
companhia,
sustainable growth of the
definindo a
company
direção
by
estratégica,
defining the strategic
antecipando mudanças
decision,
estruturais,
anticipating the structural
promovendo
changes,
inovação
promoting
e
innovation,
fortalecendo
and
nossa
strengthening
cultura
our
de liderança.
culture of leadership.
Acompanhamos de perto
We
as
have seen
iniciativas
up close
estratégicas da
the
companhia,
strategic initiatives of the
garantindo que as
company,
oportunidades
ensuring that the
se transformem em
opportunities became
resultados
in
alinhados com os
results
interesses dos
aligned with the
acionistas
interests
e
of the
geração de valor
shareholders
no
and
longo
generation
prazo.
of value in the long
Entre as
run.
etapas importantes
Among the
realizadas
important
este ano,
stages, the more
alcançamos um
things we did
marco
this year,
significativo
we
que
have
nos é
reached the
muito caro:
milestone which I would like
a
to mention,
aprovação do
the
nosso plano de
approval
incentivo de
of our
longo prazo da
long-term incentive plan, a plan that aligns Renner with the best global practices all over the globe, reinforces our commitment to meritocracy and the alignment to the interests of our stakeholders, and also strengthen our capacity to attract and retain the talents to carry out the following cycle. What you will see today with our executive leaders is, it's a company that is getting ready not only for the next cycle, but for the next decade, which is more will be more digital, more integrated, more data oriented, and more geared towards sustainable growth, profit. In 2025, we have redefined the strategic priorities of Renner through a clear, integrated plan, which reinforces brand reinforcement, based on an incomparable understanding of Brazilian customers, strengthening our position as the major reference of fashion in Brazil, a structure of unique products, differentiated and insight-oriented structure, which in which we use data, artificial intelligence, and a model of execution that improves the margin, reduces remarcations, and speeds up the time for release. An omni ecosystem which is continuous and scalable, which expands its reach through new stores, better insertion into the digital sphere, and better productivity. You know, it's a strategic facilitator, promoting more engagement and providing support for expansion into new markets. Disciplined financial management, which ensures efficient capital with a solid cash flow, leverage profile, which is conservative, and a flexible structure, which is efficient as well. In 2026, we're going to see the important beginning of a new cycle of growth and generational value. On behalf of the Board of Administrators, I'd like to thank you all for being here. Thank you for your trust and your continuous work. And I would like to thank you all our staff members, our administrators, all of them under the leadership of Fabio have put together the Investor Day, which I believe you'll love it. They were so fully dedicated. Thank you so much. And thank you not only for the Investor Day, but for all the days in 2025. With their competency and high quality work, you dedicate yourselves tirelessly to make Renner better each day. Now, I would like to invite Fabio to come to the stage. Thank you.
Bom dia a todos.
Good morning,
Queria
everyone.
agradecer a
I'd
presença
like to
tanto
thank
presencial
you
quanto online.
for being here both online
Solto quero dizer
and
também
in
que
person.
realmente para a
Soto, I'd
gente,
like
né,
to
tanto
say
para o
that,
conselho
for
quanto para
us,
mim,
both for the
todo o
board
poder
and for me
executivo,
personally,
né, o nosso
for all
foco
the executives,
é
our
no
focus
crescimento
is
sustentável e
on
geração de
sustainable
valor
growth and
para a
generation
nossa
of
empresa,
value
né? Então,
for our company.
focados nisso, é
We're
por isso que a
we're
gente está aqui
focusing on
hoje.
that. That's
Qual
why
é o
we're here today.
objetivo que a gente
But
montou esse
what
day?
this is the goal,
Para
The goal
compartilhar
is to
com todos
share
vocês
with all
algumas
of you some
ambições
of the
que nós
ambitions
temos para os
that we have
próximos
for the
5 anos,
coming 5 years,
relacionadas, né, a
which are
crescimento
related to
e geração
growth
de valor.
and generation of
Ah,
value.
e a gente vai também compartilhar ao
And
longo
also, we're
da
going to
manhã,
share
né, com
over the
alguns
court over
executivos
this
aqui,
in this morning.
como que
We're
nós
going to share with
pretendemos
you
atingir,
guys
né, esses
how we
resultados,
plan to achieve those
maximizando o
results,
potencial dos
thus
nossos ativos.
maximizing the potential of our
Ah,
assets.
temos que
We have
reforçar aqui que
to
a gente já
reinforce to you
parte, né,
that,
desse ponto de partida.
this
Nós
is
somos
our starting
líderes de
point.
mercado,
We are leaders in the market.
estamos ganhando market share e
We
temos
are
condições de ganhar
getting
ainda
getting
mais e
market
ampliar
share. We can
ainda
get
mais a
even
nossa
more and
liderança.
expand our
Temos
leadership
condições
position,
de
leading
alavancar
position. We
ainda mais
can
também os
leverage
nossos
even more
diferenciais
our
competitivos.
our
Nós temos
market differentials,
profundo
competitive
conhecimento
edges.
do
We know a
consumidor,
lot. We know consumers a lot.
temos marcas fortes e
We have strong
reconhecidas,
brands which are
temos
recognized
grande
by everyone.
diferencial
We are unique
do modelo Omni, né,
in terms
que
of the
é
Omni model.
a maior
We have
capilaridade
the
no Brasil
largest
em termos
capillarity in
físicos,
Brazil
com
in
uma
terms of physical
relevância digital
stores
muito forte.
with a
Então essa
digital
conjunção
relevance, which is
é
very
uma
strong.
conjunção
So putting these two
importante
things together, it
para
makes
nós
us
no
very, very
mercado.
unique in the market.
Alavancando tudo
And
isso,
by
a gente
leveraging
tem
all that,
time
we have a
altamente
team which
competente
is highly
e
competent
engajado, né?
and
E isso
engaged.
tudo nos
And
coloca
all of that
à
makes
frente
us
dos nossos
ahead of
competidores.
our competitors.
Bom, mas
Well,
indo direto ao ponto,
by going
né?
straight to the
Nós
point,
entramos
you know,
nesse
we
período, né?
We started this period in from 20, we'll start the 2026, 2030 period with a platform which is ready. We have invested in it and we're going to talk about it. We have invested in infrastructure, technological platforms, CV, artificial intelligence, algorithms, database, and our installed capacity is big and we can grow with profit, with profitability. So this is the moment we've been growing, we've been getting, our performance has been really good since mid 2024, but as Soto mentioned, in 2025, we stopped and looked at things. Okay, what else? What then? We have installed capacity to accelerate, to speed up even more, and continue growing and gaining more profitability and revenues. So I'd like, I just want to show you this. I saw it earlier before the Investor Day. We have published some of the figures that you can see here, and you'll see throughout this session today with notices, relevant data about the indicators of expectations for the coming 5 years. So this is on our website.
We have the expectation with these investments that we did, with the initiatives that we will speak of today, have an average growth in the next 5 years between 9 and 13%. More than that, with a gain in profitability above this, coming through scale, through gross margin, but reduction of expenses. We have an expectation in this period during these 5 years of reducing our commitment of expenses on the net revenue 2 to 3 percentage points, coming from the growth, gain in efficiency, also reduction, the specific reductions. Another important point, talking about investments we did before, we came from a cycle of investment, 9% CapEx on our net revenue, investments geared towards this platform, this infrastructure, the installed capacity in the database, in this model that is ready to grow with efficiency and profitability. So we go to a phase now that our investment it is more normalized. We have an expectation of a CapEx on net revenue around 6 to 7.5% in this period annually, in this period, but the investment is geared towards growth. More or less two-thirds of the investment is for new stores, refurbishing stores, and digital journey. 3 points of growth, direct growth. When we align growth in sales, reduction of the commitment of expenses on revenue, and a CapEx that is more normalized, it allows us also to be ambitious with a ROI around 20%. And with a generation of cash free that is very important, that allows us to do all of these investments, operate the company, and having an expectation to continue to have a distribution of value to the shareholders in a high level. Daniel is going to explore this more, but we have an expectation to distribute a value between 50 and 80% of the profit to the shareholders, doing the necessary investment and growing. Besides this, I mentioned that this morning we published these indicators, these and a few others, but we also published a new repurchasing program and a new distribution of interest rate on our own capital. You can have access to this. These are examples that our new program of repurchasing, once again, in an interesting amount, a new distribution of interest on our own capital, are examples of the trust that we have in our company and the generation of value that we have for the shareholders. Well, in our strategy, I was talking about numbers, but it was guided in our purpose. Our purpose is to delight everyone. We want to delight our customer, to go above the expectation of our customers and our shareholder expectation, generating more value. We do this guided also by an obsession in the centrality of the customer. Delighting the customer is essential for us, aligned to our value proposition to be a reference ecosystem in lifestyle and fashion. In the past, we talked about our strategic pillars. We call the three R's, the three objectives where we want to be a reference. We want to be a reference in lifestyle and fashion, in delighting journeys of our customer, and responsible brands. These are the three references that we have worked on for a few years. The published strategy here is to accelerate and make potential, maximize what we were doing with a few other initiatives. It's not a change in the route, it's a continuity with an evolution and acceleration. Regarding the three pillars that we're going to talk about this morning, this is how to win. And the things that make it feasible are the innovation, artificial intelligence. Also, we are working over 10 years with this, not just database, algorithm, developing of an end-to-end system to use this, the operational excellence that we have and our team, our people, and our culture. But I would like to call here, I ask you to play a video to see what Renner, Lojas Renner S.A. is today. We are, oh, we have something. Well, we saw the numbers now, what Renner S.A., some of our brand concepts. We're going to see this in numbers when we bring here. We are the leader ecosystem of fashion and lifestyle in Brazil. And a few numbers of the last 12 months up to September, these are public numbers. We have in this period over 20 million active customers purchasing the last 12 months that purchased with us 13.7 billion in reais in merchandise and retail, generated net profit of 1.4 billion and generated a free cash flow of 1.5 billion. Besides being the main fashion brand in Brazil, the most important brand in fashion in Brazil by far, we have a global recognition, also especially in our ESG practices. We are a reference in some of the main rankings and levels such as Dow Jones Sustainability Index, and we are triple A in the rating, in the Stanley rating for ESG, ahead of our peers, domestic peers and global peers. But some of the competitive advantages of Renner are related to what we speak about the three pillars, the three R's. When we talk about the three R's, fashion and lifestyle, a big competitive differential we have. We invested a lot during these years and we continue to evolve is our execution of fashion, our capacity to create incredible, delighting products, assertive, capturing the best trends, translating this to the customer, to the taste of our consumer, of the Brazilian market, Argentinian, and from Uruguay also. Another important point is this issue of the supply chain. We have the best suppliers domestically, an important chain. It's an asset, a competitive advantage, and we have a long-term relationship with them. This is very hard to be built. We have over 20 years of relationship with our main suppliers. Besides this, we also have the flexibility of a global matrix of sourcing, two important assets that we have here connected to this execution of fashion, a network of suppliers that's a differential, or supply system, 100% omni, 100% SKU based. We have the flexibility, the scale for physical and digital, working piece by piece, bringing speed, granularity, optimizing our assets and our stock also. Reference in delighting journeys, we have the issue of capillarity or physical capillarity, incredible, integrated to the digital. The omni is very important to be present 100% of our customer journey, not just in the physical journey or the digital journey. In both integrated, we have the biggest proximity with all of our customers and the best experience with the omni players also. All of this is made even stronger with a digital platform that booms with AI data. We invested a lot the last few years. When we talk about data and artificial intelligence, it's present in different moments of our model and the platform. For example, our database that I mentioned, the knowledge of our customers that drives the journey with assertiveness and product is leveraged by Realize that potentializes this convenience and recognition of our customers. Not just that. We go to the end-to-end model. When we capture the trends with more assertiveness, the decision of sorting, the supply, distribution, journey in the store, journey online, recommendations, content, and productivity of the team. All of this, we use a lot of AI, content, database, and this continues to evolve. Besides this, we have also the part of responsible fashion. We are number one brand in value in Brazil. We are a reference also ESG globally, and also financial stability and financial security or safety. When we talk about the market that we are positioned, Brazil, Argentina, Uruguay, the majority of our market is Brazil. We sell fashion, clothing, shoes, accessories, beauty. Here I detail the estimate of the Brazilian market in terms of uh, garments. We are in a, or apparel. We in 24 an estimate of 132 billion in terms of consumption, and the estimate of Euromonitor is that this market will continue to grow 6% every year in the next few years because we are positioned in such a big market. This is an asset, a competitive advantage. Also, more than that, if we look at the formal market, the three biggest players only have 20% of the market. It's also a potential, not just in terms of growth in the market, but a gain of share in terms of the biggest players. We must remember that we are the leaders with 10% of formal market. Other countries, when we do benchmarking, is a lot higher. Our potential is a lot higher due to this. We must remember that we're talking about the formal market. It's hard to estimate exactly the size of the informal market. The majority of the estimates talk about the 40% an informal market. So the formalization of the market brings this to the main players without even mentioning that we are positioned as the player that has the greatest potential to capture this market and grow even more our market share. Besides this, in this market, our positioning is a big asset, a big differential. We are positioned in
né? Onde
accessible
tá
fashion,
Renner, tá
where
Kamikado,
we
tá
have
Yukon,
Renner,
e a
Kamikado,
gente vê
Yukon,
muito espaço ali
and we see a
para
lot of
conseguir
space
crescer,
to be
né?
able
E
to
crescer
grow
mais nos
and
conceitos
grow
que temos, né?
more in the
As marcas que
concepts we
temos,
have, the
mas
brands we have.
também vemos espaço
We
nesse mesmo
see more
posicionamento
space in the same
para crescer
positioning
também com novos
to
conceitos.
grow with
Acho que
new
os números que
concepts.
nós estamos
The
falando aqui
numbers
hoje, que
that
nós
we mentioned
publicamos, que a gente vai
today, that we
falar, são
published, that we're
sobre os
going to talk
ativos
about,
atuais que a gente
are
tem,
about
os
the current
conceitos
assets
atuais que a
that we
gente tem,
have,
as
the
marcas
current
atuais, as
concepts
BUs
we have,
atuais que a gente
current
tem e
brands,
as
the BUs
geografias
we
atuais
have,
que a gente tem, os
the
países onde a
current
gente já atua.
geographies we have, and the
Ah,
countries where we
existe
already at.
potencial para mais?
There's potential
Sim,
for
existe
more.
potencial para
Yes,
mais.
there's potential for
Estamos
more.
sempre atentos a
We are
isso,
always
avaliamos
paying
todas as
attention to this.
oportunidades
We
com
evaluate
muita
all
diligência, sempre
opportunities
com foco
with
na geração de valor
diligence,
aos
with
nossos
focus to
acionistas e
generate
sempre com um olhar
value to the
atento, por exemplo, em
shareholders. We're paying
conceitos.
attention to
Ah, em,
concepts.
pode ser orgânico ou
It can
inorgânico,
be
mas nos
organic or inorganic.
inorgânicos, né, nas
The inorganics,
complexidades de
the
integração, nós conhecemos
complexities of
complexidades de
integration,
integração que são
possible
importantes e às vezes
complexities
são
of integration that
desprezados,
are
ou
important
num
and
novo país
overlooked
também,
sometimes,
e
or a new country
nas
also.
questões geopolíticas, né?
The
Mas
geopolitical
as
issues,
possibilidades
the
existem, não
possibilities
é
are
sobre isso
out
que a gente está
there. It's
modelando os
not
números
about
de hoje,
this that we're
são
modeling
oportunidades
today's
adicionais para
numbers.
o futuro, e
Additional
o que a gente
opportunities for the
garante é que a
future.
gente
What we
sempre vai
guarantee
avaliar com
is we
muita
always
disciplina
will
e com
evaluate with
foco na geração de
discipline
valor aos
and
nossos acionistas
focusing to
cada
generate value
oportunidade.
to the shareholders
Bom,
every moment.
a gente vem também
Well,
dos últimos
we
10
have
anos,
in the
a gente
last
vai abrir
10
pouco
years,
mais sobre isso, os ciclos,
let's
mas de um
detail the
crescimento
cycles a bit more.
importante, né?
We have
E
an
esse
important growth,
crescimento,
and
ele
this
vem
important
uma parte
growth,
veio por
a part
crescimento
of
de
it comes
metragem,
to
né, de
the
expansão física,
square meters,
entre
physical
os últimos,
expansion.
desculpa,
In
10
the
anos,
last
em torno de
10 years,
5% e muito
around
concentrado
5%
no início desse período,
concentrated in the
né? Porque
beginning
nos
of the
últimos anos
period,
a gente
because in the
praticamente não
last years,
cresceu
we almost
metragem,
did not
mas
grow
crescemos
in
essa
square
metragem com
meters, but
ganho de
we
eficiência,
grew
né? As nossas vendas
with gain of
cresceram
efficiency.
mais,
The
né,
sales
10%, o
grew
nosso
more,
lucro, a geração de
10%,
caixa
the
também.
profit and
E a gente
cash
fez isso
flow
ganhando mercado.
increased also. And we
A
did
gente
this with
trouxe
market
indicadores
share
diferentes
increase.
aqui para
We
poder
brought
comparar,
different indicators
mas
to
tanto o
compare.
PMC quanto o
But
Euromonitor, né?
PMC and
PMC a gente
Euro
cresceu mais do
Monitor,
que 4
PMC, we
vezes a
grew
média do
over
mercado.
4 times that
Euromonitor a
market
gente
average.
cresceu
Euro
mais
Monitor,
100%
we
do
grew over
indicador e
100% of the
ganhando mercado
indicator,
ainda mais nos últimos
gaining
anos, né?
market,
Lógico
even
que
more
quando a
market
gente
the last
olha
few years.
os
Obviously, when we
principais
look at
players,
the
a gente
main
tem um evento
players,
diferente
we have a different event
no início ali de
in the
2020, né,
beginning
quando
of
teve pandemia,
2020
com
when
a
with the
entrada de outros
pandemic,
modelos de
the
negócio,
entrance of
um
new
crescimento
business models,
vertiginoso de outros players
vertiginous
com
growth of
cross-border,
other
que realmente tiveram um
players
crescimento maior do
cross-border
mercado.
that
Mas
have
se a
a
gente olha
higher
a
increase
partir de
or growth in the
2023,
market. When we
24 e
look
agora em
23
25,
on
já tem uma
24 and
estabilidade desse
25,
crescimento desse
there's a
outro modelo de negócio
stability
e
of
uma
the other business
continuidade do nosso
model
crescimento,
and
né?
a
Quando a gente olha no
continuity
gráfico
of
ao
our
lado
growth. When
também,
we look
a
at
questão
the
de
plot
produtividade, né, em relação
right beside it in terms
a
of
omnis players,
productivity,
né?
looking
E
at
esses
omni
dados são
players,
públicos, né?
the data is
É venda
public.
total contra a
The
área, né?
complete
Porque eu sei que
sales
às vezes, né,
compared to the
tem muita
area.
publicação de
Sometimes
resultado
there are many
sobre
publications of
ajustado aqui, ajustado
results
aqui, categoria
adjusted
X,
here,
categoria
adjusted
Y,
there, category
mas o que
X
vale
or
no
Y.
total, acho que todos
What's
concordamos,
valid
é
in
a venda
total?
total
We
que é
agree.
gerada sobre
Total
os ativos que
sales
você
that's
tem, né?
generated
Então
on
a
top
gente
of the
vem
assets you
ganhando, nós
have.
já
So
éramos
we're
referência quando a
gaining.
gente olha
We
lá
were a
antes da
reference.
pandemia,
When you look
e a
at
gente
before the
ampliou em duas
pandemic,
vezes e meia a
we
vantagem, né?
increased
Abriu
our
ainda mais esse
advantage
gap.
2
E a gente vai falar aqui como
times.
é que a gente vai
We
continuar
increased
abrindo
the
isso.
gap, so we need to see how we can continue in this trend.
Bom,
Well,
quando a gente olha também, e
when
acho que
we
vale a pena
look
sempre
at
trazer contexto
also,
para a
it's
gente ver
important to
os
bring
ciclos, né, os
context to see
momentos,
the
da
cycles,
onde
the
vem o crescimento, da
moments
onde vem
where
a
the growth is
rentabilidade, do que
coming
a gente está
from, the
olhando daqui para
profitability where
frente.
it's coming
Então,
from, and what we
eu trouxe
see for
aqui
the
de
future.
2010 a
I brought
2019,
from
porque
2010 to
foi um momento que a gente
2019.
cresceu
It
muito,
was a moment that we
né,
grew a lot,
principalmente pela expansão
especially
geográfica dentro
due
do
to the
Brasil, né?
geographic
Naquele momento
expansion
foi um
in
momento que a
Brazil.
gente
It was a
avançou pelo Brasil
moment where
inteiro,
we
teve um boom
advanced throughout
de abertura
Brazil.
de
There was
shopping
a boom
centers,
of
a gente
shopping
cresceu com isso, abriu
centers,
muita loja, abriu muita
inaugurations,
metragem,
a
boa
lot
parte
of
do nosso
stores,
crescimento,
a lot of square meter.
principalmente no
A
início
lot
do
of our
período,
growth, especially
veio
in the
disso,
beginning
né?
of the period,
Além
came from
disso,
this. Besides
começamos a crescer
this,
também em
we
novos
started
países,
to
novas
grow in
geografias,
new
mais para o
countries, new
final desse período
geographies.
abrimos a Argentina,
Close to the
Uruguai
end
e
of
depois a
the
Argentina,
year, we opened
e
Argentina Argentina and Uruguay, or Uruguay then Argentina. In the beginning of the period, we started to test and see the opportunities. We understood of new concepts.
So the Kamikado was purchased earlier this in the cycle. The Yukon was created in the beginning of this cycle too, and so they began growing and contributing, minimally at first, in some countries in this period. When we look at the 2022-2023 cycle, we made major investments in infrastructure, this platform that is ready now with the installed capacity to grow with revenues, profitability. It was built in this cycle, 2020, 2023. Not many stores were open. I mean, some of them, of course. We managed our portfolio. We closed some stores, we opened others. But in terms of area growth, no, didn't have much. We grew digitally, of course, but in the moment we were investing in the efficiency of our digital platform. It was diluted, but the investments that we made, allowed us to get into the following cycle, and I'm talking about 2024, 2030. We're talking about the figures from 2026, 2030, but it started in the middle of 2024 and will be leveraged in by 2030. But in that period, we saw that we finished our investments in infrastructure, we diluted expenses on income and improved profitability. Daniel's going to show you a little bit more of that. And now we're ready to do even more to accelerate our expansion and other points. So the growth we had from 2024 to 2030 will be based on efficiency. And on top of that, it will be combined with the acceleration of expansion, digitally, of course, with good profitability. When we have capacity to do so. But when we talk about strategy, we believe that, you know, there is something that says culture is a strategy of breakfast. We believe, if they're not aligned, yeah, it could be, but we're really concerned about working with culture and strategy together, so they don't like overtake the other, but they can go hand in hand and both of them can succeed. So we developed our strategic plan, we made adjustments to the essence of our culture, but we made adjustments in terms of the evolution of culture aligned with the strategy. Also, the metrics, as you said, long-term and short-term incentives, they're all aligned with this strategic plan, the new organizational strategy, processes, and sustainability, they all converge, they're all stated in this plan. But to talk more about this, I'd like to invite our Vice President of People and Sustainability, Regina Duran. She's going to talk a little bit more about it.
Bom dia a todos e todas.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Regina. I'm going to talk to you about our people and sustainability strategy. Our strategy, is grounded in 4 pillars. We start with the idea of cultural evolution. Our cultural evolution is line in line with the corporate strategy, so that's why strategy and culture go together. At Renner, we have established new organizational values, as we have revisited them in a short period of time. And among those values, we chose 5. It's important to remember that our purpose here will not change. We want to delight customer. This is what we're here for. And because of that, we have strengthened one of the most important values that we have, clients and customers. That's what we are here for. They are at the center of our decisions to give them what they really want with technology and innovation. The second value is high performance. Our culture at Renner S.A. is a culture of beating expectations, and high performance elevates that even more, raises the bar even more, because we want to deliver results with more quality, speed, and assertiveness. Third value is people. This is one of the values that are most important for us because we are a company of people, to people, and we need to take care of our staff members, giving them an environment, a diverse, inclusive, and environment for high performance. Fourth value is sustainability, which is today a future, which builds our future. It's the value that ensures that we're going to be there longer. And the fifth value, leadership. The value which is the propelling agent of all the others and all the behaviors that are associated to it. Because leadership is the role model, is the guardian of our culture. Leadership is what makes and develops our talents for today and the future, and also ensures that we are always leaders at the forefront. Second pillar is performance management. Here we have two major types of incentives that are aligned with the interests of stakeholders and corporate strategy and executives and staff members' interests. These are important leverages to retain people. The first incentive is the deals with short-term goals. We have a trigger. The operating results are EBIT, same thing as main indicators. We have the net operating revenue, free cash flow, and net income. In terms of long-term incentives, we have the following indicators: earnings per share, ROIC, and T relative TSR. Our third pillar is organizational structure and processes. This pillar is embraced by our corporate strategy and evolving and has been giving good, effective results. We also have the right team. Our team is engaged with 89% of engagement. We have a team that wants to be in the company with 95% of retention among leaders. And our team grows and develops with us with 66% of internal performance in leadership positions. Fourth pillar is sustainability. It's got ramifications in three major areas. The first one is sustainability and climate solutions, climate circular and regenerative solutions. Our main goal is resilience, and we are very proud to remember that we were the second company, number two company in the world to adopt voluntarily the FRS S2 report. We are also very proud to say that 8 out of 10 car pieces made by us are sustainable. The second pillar is human and diverse relations. Our goal here is to have a real image of Brazilian society in our staff. So we can offer them collections and experience that are even more delighting and more assertive to them. Today, we have 62% of women as leaders, 48% of women in high leadership positions, and 34% of Black leaders. Third pillar is the pillar of connections that amplify. It deals with our long-term partnership with our supply chain at national and international level. This strategic partnership is important because it makes our suppliers have a unique methodology with us, and so they can get all the support they need for them to have like social environmental practices, but also managerial practices. Like globally speaking, the best that we have to offer to those suppliers. And their management improves too. Today, 100% of our suppliers are certified, both nationally and internationally. And so, with all that strategy that I have just mentioned to you, and with all the indicators, people indicators, we are certain and we're sure that we have the right strategy and the right people and the right team to deliver even more value to stakeholder and carry out this strategy with assertiveness. Now, to talk a little bit more about the strategy and give you details about what's next with Renner, please. Let's see, my colleagues will be here with you. Fabiana Tacola, Renner VP, Renato Altenfelder, Gustavo Ewas, Paula Mazanek, and Alexandre Aires, our supply chain director. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Welcome. Now we're gonna drill down together at BU Renner. We call it BU, but that's our brand. And to talk about Renner, I would like to remind you, what we're talking about. Let's talk about this company, this brand. The heart of our fashion here. In Brazil, we are the largest fashion and lifestyle brand in Brazil, remember, we, you know, we we work together with our customer. We love them. We connect them with them deeply, and we are recognized as a company with a feminine soul. And to talk about feminine soul, I'd like to remind you, most of our customers, over 75% of them are women, are females. And they're more or less like they are ranging from 25 to 50 years old, vast majority of them. And they live and and they are like upper middle class and middle class individuals mostly. But we cater to not only to feminine audiences, we are a family uh, store. We work with things for men, we work with cologne and perfumes, beauty products, accessories, shoes, kids. So we're very comprehensive. And what's unique about Renner in relation to our competitors? I think, it's important to remember that what makes us unique is the way that we translate collections. That's what we call the lifestyle methodology. This is more or less like how do you get information that is out there in several systems on the planet and translate that into assertive collections that delight our customers. This methodology, the consistency of this methodology year after year is what makes us unique. Fabio mentioned it, sales by square meter is so high. How do we get that? But that's not enough. There's more to it. There's that nice part, the Brazilian aspect of it. What m makes us Brazilian is the deep knowledge that we have of our clients, of our customers. You cannot make caricatures of that. We work real hard to translate fashion with the Brazilian influence. Something very important too. We are recognized by our customers for the quality of our product. This is a reference. We are a reference. And of course, not least important, is equally important, for our customers, our value of our products have an aggregate value that is really, really high. And this gives us, this makes it accessible to them. And what does that mean? People, I just as a reminder, this translates it's not only the largest brand of fashion and lifestyle in Brazil. It's not just the largest fashion retail store. It's the most valuable market in Brazil, valuable brand in Brazil in terms of fashion and lifestyle. We're the most beloved store and brand. We have the largest number of followers on social media. Our top of mind, is almost twice as big, as large as the second, the runner-up. Our competitive NPS among the Omni players, we have the largest NPS. Clients recognizes a certain, and our share of voice, of course, is really big. Fabio mentioned the cycle. What comes next? How are we getting ready for that? What's the cycle of growth? And to talk about it, the major goal of this new cycle is to evolve from a recognized retail brand to a fashion brand. There's something that we say here internally. Talk about purchasing at Renner to purchase Renner. And then there are three pillars in this scenario. We're gonna work with the product in delighting experiences, and we're gonna deal with the responsible fashion brand. What do we expect to get out of it? To continue growing in terms of number of customers, to continue growing, having loyalty to our customers, increase the conversion and average expenses. You know, we're the largest store in Brazil in which customers spend more. What else? Mm, we're gonna be loyal to them. We're gonna bring them to us, but mostly, we're talking about, of course, increase stock, the margin, and other thing. But the most important thing here is to be the most relevant fashion company in our customers' wardrobes, in their closets, to have the largest number of pieces in their closet. This is what we want. And to talk a little bit more about it, it's very important. Our first pillar, Renata is going to talk about the first pillar, responsible fashion. Thank you. Good morning. I'm very happy to be here with all of you. And just to start, I would like to talk about the brand, Renner, the brand. I'd like to show you a video.
Então é isso.
And so that's it.
É aqui que a gente fica.
This is where
No
we're
meio
going
do
to stay,
entre
in the
esse
middle of a wall.
desejo de ser
No,
e esse
between
medo
the
de
desire of
ser.
being myself
Quando
and
é
the
que a
fear
nossa
of being
maior
myself.
ferramenta de expressão
When
vem
is
essa força de
when did
opção?
our major expression tool became this? Let's imagine the fashion that we love. With it, let's imagine, let's sew, let's take risks, let's mix, let's try out, let's revolutionize. Oh, and breathe. You can reinvent how to do fashion. Painted has been around for a while, and it'll help you how to experience fashion your way, your rhythm. Please be yourself. Fashion is just the beginning. Well, this manifesto was released in March this year. It's an invitation for our customers, to recreate the way they see fashion with more authenticity, originality, lightness, with the freedom to be who they are. I'm very proud to say that all the images that are in the video you just saw are images of campaigns that were released after this new platform. Be yourself. Ouse ser você. But we're here to talk about this strategy. How are we going to construct this new moment? How are we going to evolve into this fashion brand? First of all, we're going to work on delighting experiences in every single point of contact, an omni experience. I know customers, we don't use the words on and off anymore. They have merged. These experiences bring us some narratives that talk about fashion, behavior, sustainability, which is something that's been growing in importance in terms of purchasing decisions. Almost 70% of the people in Brazil today consider fashion, some fashion attribute, consider sustainability when they connect to a fashion brand. And so we gain a lot from it. So we are the favorites of these customers when we do that. Also, we're going to reinforce our fashion expertise. We know a lot about fashion. Our lifestyle fashion, we translate fashion for our customer. That's for what they want. And we are going to do that by connecting with cultural moments and moments of the cycle of fashion in the country. Because, fashion is culture. Also, we're going to use several data, artificial intelligence to boost the emotional connection with them and talk to these customers even more. How are we going to connect with them? How are we going to give them relevant information that they need? Customers today, their journeys, it's not like it's not like steady. Today's things are very fluid. And also, we know who these customers are. We know these girls. How do we know them? How do we activate our radars? First we're gonna look inside, purchase information, market information, demography, what's happening on social media, what is happening in culture. Also, we also do research, very specialized research into fashion, NPS, what they expect, what customers expect, what they believe. What do they believe? We always say that fashion is an expression, tool of expression. When we get dressed, when we want to communicate something, even when we believe we're not thinking about it. And so whenever we talk to these women, what are they telling us? They're telling us that their journeys are fluid, they're multifaceted. Fashion is something very important for them. Yeah, it is. And they know that Renner is the most important brand connected to quality. And these figures here on the left makes us very proud. When we released our platform in March this year, we did some research, and since we released Ouça Ser Você, Be Yourself, it grew 25 points in recognition as a brand that not only sells clothes, but is authentic. We know fashion, we are original. We have a lot of quality.
Knowing who is this woman, this consumer, and what they are looking for, how do we get to them? First, we create these clusters. Don't worry, it won't be one in each box. You change the box during the day. But we create these clusters of behaviors of the consumer. We create content based on this, and we distribute the content in different points of contact, media, points of sale, digital, SAC, an event like this. For every point of contact, you need to bring this information, and this has brought results. Our base of customers here, I'm talking about the brand, and Fabio was talking about 20 million customers because we're talking about all of our brands. 19 million customers is the brand Renner. It's a base that grew 16% in the last 2 years, grew our omni base, also the consumer that buys on digital and physical. And in very important data, we grew 33% our base of uh, loyal and ultra loyal customers. They come more to our stores, the brick and mortar or online. They buy, the average expenditure is over 4 times as high. We have a very strong brand. We know a lot about our consumer, and we're making this invitation to recreate and transform the way he uses fashion, and Hannah should be his tool for expression so they can say who they are. I'm sorry, the audio is very low. Here, I want to take a step back, remember a bit our normal curve of fashion trend, so I can show a bit where Henner is positioned. When we look at the normal curve of fashion, Henner is exactly here. What is Henner? Henner is a trend launcher in terms of fashion. We are positioned before the hype. So it is not the trend setters, so-called, the fashion creator, and we approach the entire mainstream. But we position ourselves here due to three important reasons. First one, the majority of our competitors is in the mainstream, the majority of them. So being here in the launch before the hype, you have a capacity to capture value that is higher. The second important point of this is that we are always testing product all the time. And you can discover there's a lot of analytics here, many tools to find out what are the products that will go up, that will explode, that will become hype, or the potential products that will become hype. And having this before the hype, it's an avenue of an opportunities and advantages. And there's a third point, more important for me and for us, is more relevant. The mind of the consumer. He starts to perceive that Henner has products that are a trend before the competitor. The visits are more frequent, and you have that mindset of the customer, the brand, a fashion reference and lifestyle reference for this customer. Talking about the productive process, how is Henner? How is Henner? We must remember we have long term, big collections. It doesn't have to be urgent. We prepare for what we choose as a trend, forecast and plan the next season of our collections, big volumes, essential products. This is in long. And you have the in season. And on in season, basically, we have two big blocks of creation of products and collections. First is short term. Short term are smaller
entregues, né,
collection
naquela
produced
estação.
and delivered
E
on
por
that
que sair esse
season.
produto? Assim,
Why?
aqui você tem collab, aqui
You
você
have
tem
collabs,
espaço que você
you
deixa na
have a
carteira,
space
né,
that
para
you
que
leave
você
in your
consiga reagir. E
portfolio
quanto
to be able
mais
to
in season,
react. The more
melhor
in
para
season, the
ser o quê?
better.
Mais
To be
assertivo
what?
em relação
More
à
assertive
expectativa do
regarding
consumidor.
the
O consumidor está
consumer
sendo super
expectation. The
bombardeado.
consumer is
Ele está o
being
tempo
super
inteiro ouvindo
bombarded.
informação de moda,
It has
né? Hoje as
information about
empresas não
fashion
têm mais a
all of the time. The
exclusividade da
companies don't have the
informação e se
exclusiveness of
preparam para boa
information,
parte que isso
and
acontece. Mas tem muita coisa que
some
acontece na
get prepared
própria
for this.
estação.
And many things happen
Esse
in that
processo é
season
importante
itself,
hoje
and this
para ter as
process is
ofertas que a
important.
gente
Open
trabalha forte
portfolios
nisso.
that we work
E tem também a
strongly on.
reatividade.
And we have the
Aí
reactivity
são
also.
as tendências
Then
mais
we're talking
rápidas,
about
né?
the fast
Eventualmente vocês
trends.
estão vendo
Eventually, you see
concertos, sei lá, novelas, seriados,
concerts,
gente que
a
está
soap
fazendo
opera
alguma coisa,
series, people that are
eventos
doing
culturais pelo
something,
mundo
cultural
afora,
events
e de repente
worldwide,
explode para o hype alguma
that
coisa,
sometimes
alguma determinada
something
tendência.
explodes a
Alguém
certain
vestiu alguma
trend,
coisa e aquilo
something
explodiu.
somebody wore something and that
Como uma empresa
exploded.
referência de moda, para a
As
gente isso é
a
muito importante
fashion reference
trazer e
company, that's very important
disponibilizar
to
para o nosso
bring and
cliente.
make
Aí a
available
gente
to our
usa a
consumer.
reatividade.
Then we
Mas não é
use
só para isso.
reactivity, but
A
not only
gente
for
usa
that.
também a
We
reatividade como a gente
use
está testando.
reactivity also
E o
when we're
tempo inteiro, na
testing.
parte produtiva, a gente
All
está
the time in the
entendendo, né,
productive
em
process, we're
pequenos lotes, o que é
understanding in small
produto
batches what
bacana antes
is
do
a
hype.
nice
A
product
gente
before the
também
hype.
escala esses
We also
produtos que foram
scale these
assertivos. Então,
products
a
that were
reatividade para a
assertive.
gente também
So
é para
reactivity for us
escalar
is to
produtos. E ela
scale
retroalimenta
product
o
and it
short e,
retrofeeds
eventualmente,
the short and
dependendo
eventually,
assim, da
depending
tendência que a gente
on the
observa,
trend that we
pode virar até
observe, it
um
can
long term na
become
próxima
even a
estação,
long
numa escala
term
maior.
in next season in larger scale.
Gente, aqui ganhos assim.
Guys,
Reatividade, vou dar um
against
pouco de número para
reactivity,
vocês. A
I
gente já
give you a
começou
few
com
numbers. We
5%,
started with
né? Hoje a gente está em
5%.
20% do
Now we're in
nacional.
20% of
E a nosso
domestic.
o grande objetivo
The
é estar
big
entre 30% e
objective is to
40%
be between
aqui.
30 and 40% here.
A gente, claro,
Of
ganhando margem,
course,
ganhando share de
gaining
estoque, isso nós vamos
margin,
ver daqui a pouco,
stock,
né? Conversão muito mais
turnaround,
forte e,
conversion
claro,
that is
trazendo
stronger,
incremento de venda também.
bringing sales increment also.
Capturamos tendência.
Capturing
A gente
trends.
produz,
We
faz todo o ciclo
produce
produtivo de
the productive
disponibilização para os
cycle of
clientes,
availability of the
analisa
customer,
muito rápido, isso é um
analyze very
ferramental
fast.
importante, porque não é
This is
só
an important
analisar
tool. It's
passado.
not just
Lembra, isso
analyze the
aqui é
past.
projeção,
Remember,
é
this
um
is
pouco mais para frente.
forecast.
E
It's
a gente
looking to
escala,
the future
né?
and
E agora eu
scale.
queria chamar aqui o Alexandre
I
Aires
want to
para falar um
call
pouco como é
Alexandre
que o
Aires
supply está
to tell us
suportando
how
toda essa
supply
estratégia.
is supporting this strategy. Thank you, Fabi.
Bom dia a todos e
Good
todas. É um
morning,
prazer estar aqui,
everyone.
falar
It's a
pouco,
pleasure to be
apresentar o
here
supply chain como um
to
diferencial
present supply
competitivo,
chain
não
as
só para a nossa
competitive
companhia,
advantage,
mas
not
para toda a
just
Lojas Renner
for
S.A.
Henner, but for
A nossa área
Lojas
supply
Renner
chain tem a
S.A.
ambição
Our
de
supply
conectar
chain
toda essa
area has the
estratégia
ambition to
de
connect the
desenvolvimento de coleções
strategy
de
of
produtos, como
collection
o Fabi acabou
development
de falar,
product that Fabi
com
just
uma
mentioned
produção, uma
with
distribuição e uma
production,
entrega para todas as
distribution,
nossas
and
lojas em
delivery
todos os
for
nossos
all of our
países.
stores and
Nós
all of our
fazemos
channels.
isso divididos
We
em
do
três
this
grandes áreas.
divided in
Uma área
three
de
big
sourcing,
areas. An
que é
area is
responsável
of
por toda a
sourcing,
gestão
responsible
e
for the
desenvolvimento de
management,
fornecedores, tanto na
development
cadeia
of
nacional
suppliers in the
internacional.
domestic chain and
Uma área de
international chain.
planejamento e
A
abastecimento
planning
para
area and
agilizar
supply
decisões de
that makes the
distribuição
best
dos nossos
decisions in
produtos,
terms of distribution of
usando
product,
tecnologia e inteligência
using
artificial para
technology, artificial
potencializar o uso
intelligence
do
to
nosso modelo de
potentialize the
aquisição
use of
por
our
escala.
supply model
E,
through
finalmente, uma área de
SKUs.
logística
Finally,
que é
a
capaz de, usando os
logistics
centros de
area that is able
distribuição
to using
e
the distribution
transporte, fazer com que
centers
esse
and
produto chegue no
transportation,
momento
making the
certo
product
em
arrive at
todos
the
os
right
pontos das
time
nossas
in
lojas
all
e
of the
canais também.
points, stores, and channels
É
also.
importante dizer
It's important to
que
say
esse
that
supply chain está
this
disponível para
supply
todas
chain
as
is
unidades de
available to
negócio da
all
Lojas
the
Renner
business
S.A.
units of
E com isso,
Lojas
eles
Renner
conseguem
S.A.
desenvolver
With this, we can develop
uma área que suporta toda a
an area
empresa
that
com escala
supports
e
the entire
sinergia,
company with scale,
virando um diferencial
synergy,
competitivo. Vou
becoming
falar
a
um pouco agora
competitive
sobre
differential. I'm going to
sourcing.
talk a bit
No
about
Investor Day de
sourcing. The
2023, nós
Investor Day of
sinalizamos um pouco
23,
quais
we
seriam as
signalized
nossas áreas de
what would
atuação ao
be
longo dos
the
anos. E
areas
eu
that we
queria
would act
compartilhar os
in the following
avanços que
years.
nós
I would
temos
like
nessas
to
áreas
share the
e os
advances we had in
resultados já
these areas and
capturados.
the results that we already
Primeiro,
captured. First,
nós trabalhamos muito
we
numa
work a
triangulação
lot
ativa
in
de
active
todo o
triangulation of the acquisition of cloth from the raw material suppliers and finished material suppliers integrated in our collections, with this reducing the time that we have to develop the collections and have them in our stores. Also, we work intensively integrating the system and supply chain domestically, having visibility end to end, with being able to allocate orders with the capacity according to the capacity of the supplier, more efficiently reducing issues of lack of capacity or inefficiency or making the chain anxious. We do this for over 50% of the domestic supply chain. Finally, we work also in the development in the local suppliers, investing over 16 million reais through partners, 80%, 80 million reais that generated the adoption of processes that are more efficient, renewal of our manufacturing domestically with 20% gain in productivity and an increase of gross margin of 1.5 percentage points in the 20 major suppliers of the company. If we add this up, we have many benefits. I would like to highlight one: reducing 26% the time of production of a collection until it's available. It's a strategic differential for the company, as Fabi just presented, the capacity to react fast to trends and products that perform in a positive way. Another focus of action of the company during the last few years was to work their supply model. We adopted a supply model through SKUs for all the products in the company. It's a winning model adopted by the main retailers in the world in terms of fashion, and it presupposes that we stop allocating or supplying the stores using packs, which are predetermined packs that we send to all the company stores. These are inefficient to meet the different demands that we see in the consumer market according to each store. Now we operate with an SKU model that allows us to customize specific grids for each store, adequate for the standard of demand that we have in each store. The company doesn't do this now. We're doing this for many years, especially for the base and the middle of the pyramid products, basic products, where we captured the gains that we mentioned. The gains generate an increase in sales because I don't have a stock break in a few sizes, and I push sales in the stores, and I have bigger margin. I don't have too many sizes that are not being sold. With this, I improve the turnover in stock. With the new distribution center in São Paulo, completely operational since 24, sized to support the growth plan that we see today, we already increased the business model, the SKU business model for all the products. With this, the middle of the pyramid products and the top of the pyramid products, the more fashion products, are operate 100% SKU. This implementation brought gains, increase of the availability of products in stores, resulted in sales over 10% fashion products increase, an increase of over 10% of the pieces, these type of products. To reinforce the benefits of the supply model, we prepared a video that explains the benefits compared to the per pack model, the previous model. Let's take a look.
Ser o maior ecossistema de moda e lifestyle do Brasil requer inovação contínua e tecnologia de ponta. Por isso, apresentamos agora mais uma grande evolução operacional, o novo modelo de abastecimento por SKU. Nesse sistema, cada peça é separada individualmente, o que permite um abastecimento personalizado para cada loja. De maneira automatizada, é possível agrupar os itens em milhões de combinações diferentes, entregando para cada uma das lojas apenas o que é necessário. Vamos usar essa camiseta como exemplo para demonstrar os benefícios do modelo SKU em relação ao modelo anterior. Cada loja possui uma demanda diferente para cada tamanho desse item. Somando todas, chegamos à média da demanda pelo produto. O modelo anterior de abastecimento não era capaz de suprir essa demanda com exatidão, pois utilizava packs padronizados com uma quantidade fixa de peças e tamanhos. No recorte do exemplo, já seria possível perceber a dispersão que era gerada por esse sistema, com sobra no tamanho PP e faltas nos demais tamanhos. Se ampliássemos o olhar para todo o ecossistema, veríamos que a dispersão era muito maior. Multiplicado por mais de 500 lojas, o desequilíbrio entre demanda e alocação crescia de maneira quase exponencial. Já o novo modelo por SKU corrige essa dispersão. Cada loja recebe exatamente o que precisa. Agora, vamos para a loja. Imaginemos a loja 001, tamanhos P e M esgotados, e a procura por eles não para. Já o estoque de peças G e GG ainda é grande devido à menor demanda. No modelo por packs, a empresa teria uma decisão difícil a tomar: recompor o estoque de P e M, gerando mais vendas, mas também aumentando ainda mais a sobra de G e GG que precisariam ser remarcados. Ou não recompor e perder essas peças de P e M, causando ruptura nos itens mais vendidos, clientes insatisfeitos e impacto negativo no NPS. E relembrando, essa dispersão afetava todo o ecossistema. Os itens que sobravam em uma loja poderiam justamente estar faltando em outra, e vice-versa. Já no novo modelo por SKU, com o abastecimento ajustado à demanda da loja, as sobras não acontecem. É produto certo, no lugar certo, na hora certa, gerando mais vendas e uma experiência cada vez mais encantadora para nossos clientes.
Dessa forma,
In
uma
this
logística
way,
omnicanal que tira proveito da
omnichannel
escala que nós
distribution
temos no
that
abastecimento
uses
por
the
loja,
scale we
essa
have to
qualidade
supply
que
stores, the
representamos
capillarity that we have in all the states of
e somando
Brazil,
isso à nossa operação de
adding
e-commerce,
this
que tem
to
uma
the
penetração muito
e-commerce
grande
operation that
e
has
ainda
a relevant
associada a um modelo
impact
de
associated
abastecimento
to
preciso
the
por
supply
SKU,
model that's
ele
precise
permite
according to
suportar
SKUs,
e são
allows to
essenciais para
support
capturar
and
as
is essential
oportunidades
to
de crescimento
capture
que
the
nós temos à frente.
opportunities for growth that we have
Vou
ahead of us.
mencionar um pouco de
I'm
como
going
essa
to mention
estratégia,
a
essa
bit how
combinação
this
desses dois
strategy, the
fatores, essas
combination of
duas
the two factors, the
fortalezas,
two
impulsionam
strengths
alguma das
will
alavancas estratégicas que
leverage
nós temos no nosso plano.
the
Por exemplo, quando nós falamos
strategies we
de
have. When we
aumento da
talk about the
produtividade em
increase
loja,
in
o fato
productivity
de
in
nós podermos
stores, the
ter
fact that we are
sortimentos
able to have
customizados para cada uma das
the
lojas
sorting
vai
adequate for each
resultar numa venda
store
por metro
will
quadrado maior,
result in a
evitar
per
excessos de
square meter
estoque
sale
e
higher,
consequentemente
avoiding
vamos
access
ter
and
resultados
break in
superiores em cada
stock.
uma das
You
lojas.
have a better
Da
result in
mesma
each
forma, esse
store.
mesmo
The
modelo
same
de
way, the
abastecimento
same
preciso
supply model that's
permite que a
precise
gente tenha um
allows
ganho de
us to
sortimento
have a
em
gain in
todos os tamanhos de
sorting in
lojas,
all
mas
the
aqueles tamanhos
sizes
menores que
of stores,
sofreram
but the
muito com o
smaller
abastecimento por pack
sizes that suffered
geravam
but pack
acessos e
supply
impediam
that
o
generated
reabastecimento que
excess
afetava o
and
sortimento
didn't
e a ocupação
allow
de
to
muitas lojas.
restock
Da
in a
forma
certain
mais
size
otimizada,
and
agora
now
são
is
os
more
mais
up.
beneficiados.
We
E nós vamos
they
ver
these have the higher
na
benefit.
alavanca
We're going to
estratégica de
see that in
expansão
strategic
orgânica da
leverage for organic expansion of the
localidades não
company
atendidas,
for
esses tamanhos de
non-serviced
lojas
areas,
menores são
these smaller sizes
fundamentais.
stores are
Portanto, o modelo de
fundamental.
abastecimento é
Therefore, the supply
habilitador muito
model
importante para que
is
eles
an
sejam
important
eficientes
enabler
e
for them to be
suportem o plano futuro
efficient
da
and to
companhia.
support the future
Finalmente, nós temos uma
plan of the
alavanca
company.
que é
Finally, we have a
o aumento de
leverage, which is
penetração
the
digital.
increase of
Uma
penetration of
logística
digital.
omnicanal que,
With
de novo, tira
omnichannel
proveito da escala que
supply
nós
that
temos em
uses the
loja
scale
e
that we
uma
have in terms
tecnologia
of
sinérgica
stores,
que opera os dois canais de
synergy
forma integrada,
technology
nós
operating
reduzimos
integrated both channels. We
expressivamente os
reduce
custos de
expressively the
operação,
cost of the
tanto no centro de
operation
distribuição
of
quanto
the
de
distribution
transporte.
center
Isso
and
vai ser
the
muito
transportation.
importante para um
This
digital
is
que
very
já não
important for a
dilui
digital
resultados,
that does not dilute
crescer ainda mais de
results
forma
to
relevante na
grow
companhia.
more
E
in
por
a
último,
relevant
ao
manner.
habilitar,
Finally,
né,
when we enable
esses dois componentes de uma logística
its two
omnicanal e um
components,
modelo de
omnichannel
abastecimento preciso por SKU, não só para
and
Renner, mas
precise
para todas as
SKU
unidades de
supply,
negócio,
not just for
nós
Henner, but for all
criamos um
business
diferencial
units, we
competitivo
create
para
a
essas
competitive
outras unidades,
differential
esses
for
outros
the under
conceptos
units,
crescerem de
for the
forma
other
relevante e
concepts
mais
to grow in a
significativa
relevant
para a
manner,
companhia.
in a meaningful manner for the
Eu
company.
queria terminar
I would
aqui
like to finish here
reforçando que muitos resultados já foram
reinforcing
capturados
that
nesse
many
modelo de
results
supply
have
chain,
been
mas
captured
o
in this
potencial
supply
total
chain
desse
model,
modelo
but
ainda não
the
foi atingido.
complete potential of the model
Nós
has not
vamos
been
atingir o
reached.
potencial
We're going to
máximo
reach
desse
the
modelo
full
nos
potential of
próximos
this
2
model
anos
in the next
e, com
two
isso, criar
years.
diferenciais
And with this,
competitivos,
create
não só para a
competitive
Renner, mas para
differentials,
as
not just for
unidades de
Henner, but
negócio
for
e
all the
canais
business
da
units
companhia.
and the
Fabi?
channels that the company has. Fabi? Iris, thank you.
Pessoal, vamos olhar agora
Guys,
o
let's
nosso terceiro pilar,
look.
People, let's look at our
experiências
third pillar
encantadoras.
in the lighting experiences.
Eu acho que
And I
não
think
tem
in
o que
this
falar,
point,
né?
it's important to mention that,
Consumidor. Falar de experiência é
customers.
falar de
Let's talking about
comportamento do
experience is to
consumidor.
talk about
Comportamento
customer
de
experience,
consumidor hoje ele é
customer behavior.
imprevisível,
It's unpredictable
totalmente
today.
imprevisível.
It's just
Não tá
unpredictable.
ninguém mais naquela jornada
You know,
padrão de
you're not in that
processo. Eu vou
standard journey,
buscar,
like a
eu preciso
process. Then you go
escolher, eu
there
vou me
and then you
inspirar, depois eu
pick
vou.
your
Hoje
clothes
a
and
gente
then
não
you
tá,
take inspiration.
todo mundo tá
It's different.
aceitando
It is
isso.
just
Isso tá mais
different.
caótico, isso tá muito
It's
mais
chaotic.
oscilante.
It
E quando a gente
oscillates.
olha
And when we look at it,
uma empresa que se propõe
look
a
at a
ser uma
company, a
empresa
company
que
like
encanta
ours.
cliente,
We
que
want to delight
supera a
our customers. We
expectativa,
want to beat
a Renner
expectations.
decidiu
And it
ser o
has
varejo
decided to
omni,
be
uma empresa
an omni-retail,
omnicanal,
an
porque ela quer
omni-channel company
garantir
because we want
que
to
o
ensure,
mesmo padrão de
ensure the same
experiência,
standards of experiences
independente do
regardless
momento
of the
que o
moment
cliente está
the
na
customer
jornada e
going enters the
independente
store,
de que canal
and
ele está
regardless of
escolhendo
the
para
channel
comprar.
they're using for each moment.
Já que a gente não pode
Not
prever, a
we
gente vai ter que
can't
trabalhar
predict.
com
We're gonna
tudo.
have to
E na
work,
verdade o
address
tudo é
everything,
como
and
ser uma
everything.
empresa
What is it?
que não
Is it
só
about
mais
being a company that
resolve o
not only
problema e
addresses
acaba.
and
Não é
resolves
mais sobre
problems?
isso,
No, it's not like that
como ser uma
anymore.
empresa que ela
But
simplesmente
also to
cria
be
e
a
gera
company that simply
conveniência,
generates, it makes things
cria e
convenient,
gera encantamento,
in the
cria e
light,
gera, né,
creates and generates,
uma
let's say, a
sensação
company that
de
creates and generates a
realização de
sensation of
prazer no
accomplishment and
consumo
pleasure
e na moda,
in
principalmente, como você
consumption
falou, e na
and
moda.
in fashion
Então,
specifically.
esse varejo omni para a
This
gente ele está muito
omni-retail
relacionado.
today
E
is very
sendo uma
much
empresa
related
omni, a gente já
to that. And
percebe
by
no
being an
cliente
omni-channel
um
company, we
grande
know that
valor. Então, quando a
we,
gente
we
vai olhar o que está
realize a
acontecendo, por
great
exemplo, vou
value
dar
in our
alguns exemplos
customers.
aqui, a gente
I'm going to give you
abre
some examples
lojas
here.
no
We
interior
open
das grandes
stores in the
cidades, onde
countryside,
a gente está
in big
abrindo
cities.
loja.
So,
Isso acelera 10,
wherever we open
20% a
stores,
mais a
we get like a
velocidade
10,
do
20
crescimento
acceleration
digital.
of in
Quando o
terms of
cliente
the
compra
increase
no
in digital
digital,
sales. When
35% dos
customers
nossos
purchase
clientes
stuff
optam
digitally,
por
35% of that
retirar o produto por
they
conveniência
prefer
em
to
loja
pick up
física.
in store because
Desses,
it's convenient,
15% já
and
fazem uma compra
15% of
no
that
mesmo momento.
they
Quando a gente pega os pedidos
they pick leads
digitais,
they carry out
as
an additional
pessoas que querem
purchase.
trocar,
And
é normal,
70%
natural,
of
porque
the
tem um
people who
percentual
want to
ali da gente que
exchange their
quer
products,
trocar,
normal,
experimentou, não
it's only
gostou, quer trocar
natural.
a
They try
cor, quer
something
trocar o
out, they want to
caimento.
use a different color
Dos que querem
or the
trocar,
size. Out of those
70% dos
individuals,
pedidos do
70% of
digital
that of
optam
the
por trocar em loja
exchanges,
física. Desses,
when they request digitally, they
27%
want to go to the
compram
store in
adicionalmente.
person. And then 20% of
A
them
base
buy
nossa, nos últimos 2
additional
anos de
items.
base omni, de cliente que
Our
está
omni-channel base,
no múltiplo canal,
for
cresceu
clients
mais
who
de
are in several
11%.
channels, we
Esse
grew
cliente
over
gasta
11%.
3 vezes
This
mais que o
customer
cliente
spends three
monocanal.
times
Se
more
ele
than a
for
single channel
realize, então,
customer. If
ele
they are
gasta
a
6 vezes
Realize,
mais.
you
Então,
know,
para a gente, isso
customer,
já
they'll
é
spend
uma
6 times
realidade,
more.
né? A
And
gente
so
tem
here
que
in Brazil,
citar
this is
essa
a
realidade. Eu
reality.
sei que é importante.
It's
Então, até
really,
aqui
really
vou trazer um
important. Of
recorte para a
course,
gente
here we
lembrar só o
got
tamanho que isso
a
está na
snapshot of
companhia,
this
mas
in
para
our
a
company.
gente isso já
But for
é uma
us, this is
parte do processo,
it's part of the
parte
process.
desse varejo omni. O
This
digital nosso
omni-channel
atingiu mais de
retail.
2,4
Our digital
bilhões.
sales
É
reached over 2.4
15%
billion.
da venda da empresa.
It's 15%
Completamente
of
inserido
our
aqui.
company.
Nós temos
We
mais de
also
7
have
milhões
over
de
7
clientes
million
ativos
clients,
mensalmente.
customer who are
Tem
monthly,
mais.
who
A
are
gente
active
já
each
é,
month.
pela sexta vez,
And for the sixth
reconhecido como
time,
o
we
maior
are
e
the
melhor
best
mundo
e-commerce
digital da
company
moda. Então,
in
outra
fashion.
coisa muito importante, a
Something very,
gente
very
tem
important here
acelerado o mundo
too. We
digital, tem
have accelerated,
potencializado o crescimento da empresa e
digital
tem
sales have
contribuído, o Fábio
maximized the
conversou sobre
company,
isso no
has
início,
contributed a lot.
mas ele
Fabio mentioned
mais
it
do que
earlier,
contribuiu,
but in
faz
more than
isso
contributed,
se rentabilizar.
it
Então,
has
quando a gente vai
become,
olhar ali, ó,
it has
o gap
materialized into
cresce
revenues.
muito mais no CAGR
You
do que a
see,
própria venda.
see those images
E
there,
se a
those
gente olhar
figures,
mercado,
and if we look at the market,
a gente está com 15%.
we
Mas
have
quando a gente olha o
15%. But
Brasil,
when we look at
né,
Brazil
os
as a
players
whole,
omnilocais, a gente
local
está
omni
bem
players,
na
we are
frente, quase
way
3
ahead of
vezes,
them,
né?
almost three
30%.
times
Sai
ahead.
de 5, 7 para
Go from
15, é quase o
five
dobro.
or seven, go to
Mas se a gente olha
15.
a
But if
oportunidade,
we look
no
at the
Brasil, em moda, a
opportunities
gente
in
tem um pouco
Brazil,
mais de
in terms
penetração
of
no varejo
fashion, we
local, até
can
pela chegada
get
dos
the
players
digital sales can
pure
get
digital.
in.
Então,
We
a
have
gente
the
tem
pure
espaço,
digital
tem muito
players.
mais espaço
We
do
have
que
room. There there's room for us, and there's a lot more room when we look at the outside of Brazil. There are more mature countries than Brazil. This is accelerating, but has reached numbers, very high numbers. But I think the most important point here for us is our digital sales. It's not sales anymore or not about sales anymore. It's the largest is window shop, largest window for a company. We give inspiration, we have a new trend almost every day. Today we work with digital platforms that influences what goes to the runways and also in the store, physical stores, visual merchandising. This is fully connected to it. And most importantly, even more important is when we look at it, it drives technology a lot. So of course, we talk a lot about artificial intelligence and stuff, but I'm going to give an example. We have images and pictures of babies here, baby models. Of course, we have images of babies, of course, but most of them were like still images. But when we can using AI to humanize this model, it drove over 60% in terms of visits, walk-ins, and conversion, especially in babies' products. So it maximizes a lot. When we talk, we had a recommendation engine. It's always evolving. This is this is a tool, important tool. It's basic, but the most important thing here is to know how to use it and how much it is evolving into assertiveness. And we have also had, last year we have over 135% of revenue growth driven by recommendations. And so, of course, we have like a virtual assistant, but we are getting ready for the most important point that is coming, which is agent commerce. So we're going to start to experience a reality in which we are not going to provide assistance to the end customer, but provide assistance to this customer's agent. And this is a reality now. And if you look at Renner, we are the number one in terms of chat GPT searches. Good. Now I'm going to invite, all right, let's continue talking about experience. And now we have Paula from Realize. How is Realize going to maximize all that? Good morning, everyone. It's a great pleasure to be here with you. I see some familiar faces. I've had a chance to talk to some of you. It's really nice to open our doors for you. So we saw that Realize was in very important moments of the presentation thus far. When Fabio mentioned the lighting experiences and Realize as a boost in our ecosystem, when Renata mentioned the idea, the importance of faithful and loyal customers for us to, connect with them better. And as Fabiana has just said, she talked about the importance of Realize in the omnichannel strategy. But before we dive deep into it, it's important to recap on, what we had in 2023 to the Realize today after 3 years. In 2023, we had a funding company with a hybrid strategy, whose goal is to support the sales of our ecosystem, but also explore opportunities in the banking industries. And from then, we understood that that was a moment to revisit that strategy because our vocation, of course, is to have our financial aspects totally geared towards the ecosystems. Why is that? We are in an environment with 20 million customers traveling around the store. And that's precisely for this type of public audience that we want to have the best financial aspects in Brazil. And how we're going to do that, we're going to explore this, how we're getting ready for it, to support this movement, this growth for the coming 5 or 10 years. So let's start with talking a little bit about uh, loyalty. Really, Realize clients today, they come to the uh, stores physically 50% more in relation to other customers who purchase financial product. They visit us more frequently, and whenever they go to our store, they spend 150% more in terms of, annual spending. So this is proof that, how much the financial product is actually a powerful boost for spending for expenses in our ecosystem. It's important to remember too that 55% of our clients, of the loyal and ultra loyal customers of BU Renner today, they have our card. They all have our cards. This proves that, how financial services can boost and propel sales and loyalty in our ecosystem. When we go to the omnichannel strategy that Fabiana mentioned, it will become more and more relevant in Lojas Renner S.A. and at BU Renner, right? We have the Realize app. It's embedded into the Renner app. If you use the Renner app, you'll see something like a tab cards, and this leads to a high quality flow. There's over 15 million accesses, in the Renner app, and every time they go there to check out the balance, see the limit, you see they have an opportunity to connect with our products and offers, and this can convert into a sale. But also, our customers, those who have the cards, they are much more engaged than the others, three times more, in relation to those who pay in different ways. And today, e-commerce sales comparatively to the customers who use other payment methods is 93 times higher. This means that Realize Omni is like a perfect match. And we want to boost that even more. We want to make it even stronger as a financial strategy. And when we talk about data, Realize brings data that retail itself wouldn't be able to achieve if there isn't a financial company embedded. We have over 4.8 active customers and 99% of high reachability. What does reachability mean? That means that Realize customers, they really interact with the messages we sent them, either push notification, WhatsApp, email, and this is of a very high reachability, way above the market. And this makes us, it makes it look like a Realize ads, as we can offer our customers the offers, new collections, and they actually interact with them. And also, as I said, today we have two products, uh, two different cards. And so for the cards with like Visa or MasterCard, they can also spend outside of Renner. And so their expenses, they're spending outside of Renner. It's really important because we know how much they spend in fashion. These are very valuable insights for us so that we can move on with our credit model, but also to translate that into commercial insights for Renner in view of the law, of course. Another important point is the expansion of physical stores. This is a very interesting piece of information. When you look at the participation of Renner cars, you look at the consolidated purchase share, but in medium-sized cities, the penetration is 5 points, 5% higher than in larger cities, because in those cities, the population has the population doesn't necessarily have like bank accounts, and this increases the purchasing power. When we talk about Realize in terms of expanding stores to smaller cities, this is a relevant boost, a very strategic, especially because our credit policies, they're not single for Brazil. We have evolved in terms of our models, and today we have credit models per region in some states. And in some states of Brazil too, because our behavior of clients up north, they will behave different from the clients here in the south. Cost of living, per capita income, employability in the states. So this allows us to take different action and be more assertive in terms of credit granting. Lastly, we also have a novelty here for 2026, and you're gonna see it firsthand. We're gonna release a new card in the second semester of next year, and this new card is sustained by a complete revision of our strategy and model because it will have it will be embedded into the Renner app, but also like in other digital car like Apple Pay. But there'll be an annual policy, annuity policy, which is different from other clients. No, it's gonna be easy. They'll be able to purchase using Face ID only. They'll have a card, but when they get there, they'll not need the card. They'll just show their face, using Face ID. And exclusive rewards, they'll come completely embedded. We're talking about rewards that will be in our ecosystem. And how do we do that from the structural perspective? Let's talk about types and connection of a financial company. I know most of you are bankers and you know that very, very well. First point here is quite innovative. This new card is a unique card. It's 100% like comes with like a Visa or MasterCard, etc. But there are two credit limits which are independent. One for them is for client customers to use in the ecosystem, and another limit for them to use outside of it. It's innovative because no retail financial company does that in Brazil. We're going to be able to calibrate things. Our exposure to risks to each profile of client, but also going to be able to adapt the credit concession to the consumption profile of those customers. Our credit appetite and our policy, it will be oriented to expanding in the ecosystem. We're going to prioritize that. We're going to have like more limit, of course. But obviously, if you want to improve our proposal of value for our most loyal customers and for those that, make sense, we're going to be expanding credit to them because we believe it's important, as I said earlier. This brings us information that feed our credit system and brings important insights for Renner. And we have like evolved a lot in terms of governance. And I can assure you that today we have our governance is compatible with that of major banks. And this makes you guys feel really, really safe as we can support our movement of growth. Lastly, I think it's really, really important to talk about the SG&A perspective. More and more, we're going to look for automation and AI more and more because we understand that this is an opportunity that we have to drive operational efficiency in the company. And obviously, it will reduce costs. This exchanges, that we're doing, these replacements, it takes a while. This transition will take a while, and our costs will be duplicated in this moment. So from 2027, you'll see that this will bring us more efficiency in terms of G&A. And when we talk about the technological platforms, we're talking about preparing this company to be more scalable and have better performance. And lastly, our segmentation model, it's innovative. I come from the banking industry, and we use banking information, bureau information, credit behavior to model the offer and, and how do we grant credit. Here, our model is more advanced. We have the traditional model that banks use. We also have begun using a different perspective, the customer's behavior into retail. We know the parts they purchase, how frequent they purchase things, and this is important for decision making. And we're going to continue to be focused. We're going to continue focusing, we have evolved a lot, but we're going to focus on low risk customers. But it's really, really important to leave a message here with you. The financial company is fully prepared to support this growth for the coming 5 or 10 years. And speaking of growth, Gustavo Iwaza will be here with you, our strategy director. Thank you, Paula. Well, we're gonna talk about omni-channel. We have excellence in digital sales. Our physical stores are and will be very, very important for Renner, for the ecosystem, and we believe that, the digital and the physical should go together. So we are always evolving. Every year there's something new. And since 2021, we have the Remais model.
Que está sendo aprimorado, que ele traz avanço na circularidade, né? Ele traz uma jornada mais confortável, mais fluida para os nossos clientes. Ele traz uso de tecnologia.
Flows better. The use of technology, for example. CAD is a global reference. Many have approved, and the highlight to the product, to fashion, connecting what Fabi said physically, with a physical experience in our stores. The brick and mortar store is a competitive advantage. Inside the Remore model, we have two models. RA Plus Essential, that has all the attributes of RA Mice, Remice, with the choice of materials that's prepared for an expansion, the choice of finishing, wood, lighting, allows us better results, to have better results. We already have to separate the municipalities between 100, 200,000 inhabitants. We have 90 stores that perform above average, stores that we were already able with time to have a model that brings a ROIC that's positive, higher than average compared to other stores. The essential model does even better. 15 stores in Brazil up to now that have this journey of Remais that brings capex with even better results. So the 15 stores, a few examples, we have Americanas, Passos, Caldas Novas, cities with a high potential of purchasing, and we're doing this expansion in Brazil. Remais Conceito brings the essential Remais with another experience, sophisticated store that's evolving little by little. It's going to be the store that brings not only the experience of Remais, but a building of image, positioning, brand, fashion. A few examples, like there's a lounge when in the Proving Proof and social media, stores that are more sophisticated, maybe not all over Brazil, but we already have 70 of these. Every year we enhance the model. Since the first store until the latest, we evolve and we continue to evolve. It's very dynamic. We have Morumbi, Shopping Morumbi, Parque Shopping Brasilia, and Parque Dom Pedro, the most advanced store, more complete stores that we have in this model, this concept model. Remais Essencial brings returns above average. Here, we're refurbishing store. The existing store where we apply this remodeling, we invest in the store, it brings sales, brings ROIC, 5 to 10% incremental sales every store that we refurbish. To see this model better than these two images, I'm going to play a video for you.
convido vocês todos a visitar as
Well,
nossas
I
lojas,
invite
tanto
you all to
online
visit
também,
our
obviamente, estão
stores
todos
that
convidados.
are online
Loja
also.
Americana e loja Shopping Morumbi são apenas dois exemplos de
The
mais de
Americana
90 que eu
store and
acabei
the
de
Morumbi
mostrar
store are
aqui
two
atrás.
examples of
A loja
the
americana
of what
é
I
uma loja
showed
já
here in the
essencial.
back. Americana
Esse é o
store
principal
is
modelo
essential. It's
que a gente vai utilizar para a
the same
expansão
model that we're going to
dos
use to
nossos
expand
centros.
in the next
Nós
5 years.
pretendemos abrir
We
entre
want to open
140
between
a 170
140 to
lojas
170
somente da
stores.
Renner, somente no
Only
Brasil.
Renner
Mas é uma
stores, only in
parte
Brazil.
da aceleração da
It's a
expansão.
part of the acceleration of the
Ao fazer
expansion.
isso, nós vamos
When we
chegar,
do so,
vamos
we're gonna
preencher
reach, we're gonna
100% das
fill
cidades
100% of the
acima de 200 mil
cities
habitantes.
above 200,000
Estaremos já
inhabitants.
presentes nas
So
maiores
we're gonna
cidades do
be present
Brasil.
in the biggest cities of Brazil,
Partindo, já estamos, né, de 90 para 100.
starting
Falta
from
pouco, mas a gente
90
vai
to
preencher esse
100.
espaço.
We're gonna fill this
E o foco da
space,
expansão vai
and
ser
the
dar
focus of the
entre 100
expansion will
e
be
200 mil
100, between
habitantes,
100 and
considerando
200,000
micro-regiões
inhabitants,
onde já
considering
estamos
micro
presentes, como eu
regions
falei
where we are
antes.
already
Temos
present, as I
já
said before.
90 lojas
We have
nesses
90
municípios
stores in these
e chegaremos
municipalities,
a
and we will
70% de
reach
cobertura
70%
nesses
coverage
municípios, trazendo
in
uma
these
demanda
municipalities,
qualificada
bringing a
adicional
qualified demand,
de 20
additional qualified
bilhões de
demand of
reais.
20
Esse é o
billion
mercado
reais.
de um
This is the
perfil, uma
market
classe
of a
social que a
profile,
gente
a social
entende que é
class that
endereçável,
we
que é
understand
muito
that is
parecida
addressable,
com o
that
que
is
temos
very
hoje.
similar to what we
Nos dá
have
confiança
today.
de que é
It
um
gives us the
mercado
trust
endereçável,
that it's an
atingível,
addressable
possível
market,
e que será
reachable,
trará
possible,
muitos
that
resultados para a empresa.
will bring a lot
Tanto
of
é que as 15
results to the
lojas que nós
company.
já
So
abrimos no
much so
modelo
that the
essencial
15 stores that
já
we
estão
created,
trazendo
the essential
resultados.
model, are
A gente
bringing the
monitora
results.
isso de
We
maneira muito
monitor this
disciplinada.
in a very
Por quê?
disciplined
Como já
way
vimos hoje,
because, as we saw
são municípios
today,
novos,
these are new
não temos uma
municipalities. We don't
canibalização da
have
venda com lojas
a
existentes. A gente
comparison
potencializa a
to
venda
other
digital
existing
com
stores. We
experiência
potentialize
omni.
the digital
A
store, the
Paula
omni-channel.
Realize
Paula
são
talked
cidades onde o
about
cartão
Realize
é
cities
ainda
where
mais
the card
relevante.
is
Todo
even
modelo de
more relevant.
abastecimento por SKU,
The supply
para este
model
perfil de
per
cidade,
SKU
ele é
for
ainda
this
mais importante.
city
A precisão
is
do
even more
sortimento
important. The
em
precision
cada
of
cidade que a gente
sorting
entra,
in each
ele é
city
ainda
that we
mais
enter
relevante. Então, tudo
is
que
even
o
more
Marcos
relevant.
explicou
Everything
para
that
este
I
modelo, ele é
explained for this
diferencial.
model is a
Então,
difference.
a expansão é
It's
um
a
pilar
differential. The expansion is a
estratégico.
pillar,
Como eu falei,
strategic
loja
pillar.
física
As I
é
said,
um pilar
physical
estratégico
brick
para a
and mortar
gente
store
na
is
composição da estratégia Omni.
important for the
Estamos muito confiantes neste plano,
composition of the
nos
Omni strategy.
coloca,
We're
já somos a
very,
empresa de maior capilaridade
it's
e lá nos
the
dá alguns
highest
passos
capillarity
além da
brand. It
concorrência,
gives us steps ahead of the
respeitando as
competition.
fronteiras
It
nacionais como
differentiates us
fronteiras
from
na mídia
the
digitais.
domestic players and the native
Fabi,
digital players.
oportunidade com
Fabi,
você.
Gustavo. Obrigada,
the floor is
gente.
yours.
E aqui
Thank
a
you,
gente
Gustav. And here
encerra, né? Mas antes de
we
encerrar, vamos falar
finish.
um
But
pouquinho de
before we finish,
resultado,
let's
que a gente
talk a
falou
bit
muita
about
coisa,
results.
alguns
We
números,
said
mas
many
acho que fazer um
things and gave you
wrap-up
some
aqui para a
numbers,
gente
but
entender
let's do a
um
wrap up so
pouquinho,
we can
né? O Fábio
understand a
chegou a
bit.
comentar,
Fabio
isso é bem
mentioned,
importante, que a
and
gente
this is very
já
important,
vem colhendo
that
desde
we already
2024,
have
né? Esse
collected the
resultado dos
results since
investimentos que a gente
24,
fez.
the
Então, só para
results of the
poder
investments we
fixar um
made,
pouquinho
so
aqui,
we can
né? Você vê, a gente
clear
olhando
this.
agora
Looking
os
at
9 meses, né?
the 9
Tomando
months,
aqui de base os 9 meses,
taking as a
base
base the
de
9 months,
clientes, né? Quer
base,
que eu use
customer
a 12?
base.
Porque a
I'm
gente
going to
sempre
use
usa a base
12 here.
ativa, né?
We
A base
use the
ativa é dos
active
últimos 12
base.
meses.
Active
E a
base
gente
last 12
cresceu
months.
mais
We
de
grew
16%.
over
E a gente
16%.
já
We
aumentou
already increased
o spending, né? O gasto
the
médio anual
spending,
de uma
average
consumidora nossa
spending
em
of our
10%.
consumer in 10%,
24% de aumento
24%
no giro
increase
de estoque.
in the
E
inventory
a gente já está falando de
turnover, and we're
crescimento
talking about
contínuo e
growth,
forte
continuous
de venda por metro
strong
quadrado.
growth of
Talvez
sales
você
per
diga assim,
square meter.
mas ele cresceu no físico,
You
aí
might
Gustavo, mas
say,
ele
but you didn't
tá
grow
online.
in brick and mortar, only
Gente, isso é
accelerated
varejo
digital.
home, isso é
Guys,
uma marca
omni
home.
retail, it's
Isso é o
an omni
futuro desse
brand.
negócio.
It's the future of the
E isso é
business.
relevante. Isso é
This is
essa é a
relevant.
nossa proposta para
This
o nosso
is our
consumidor.
proposal for
E
our
aqui é
consumer.
mais de
And
20% de
here, it's
crescimento,
over
tá?
20%
Mas eu acho que
growth.
o principal é o que vem pela frente, né? O
The
que que a
main
gente
thing is what's
espera
to
de Go
come, what
Renner
we
pela frente. Então,
expect
assim,
of
de
Renner
novo,
BU going
evoluir como
forward. Again,
objetivo por
evolving
uma marca de moda,
as an objective for
além de
a
varejo
fashion
moda,
brand.
uma marca
Besides a retail,
referência de
fashion
moda,
retail, it's a reference
acelerar
fashion
a
brand,
nossa expansão,
accelerating our
continuar
expansion
entrando no
to
Brasil
continue
que
to
tem
enter
sim o nosso
in Brazil that
público-alvo, a nossa
has audience or target audience A, B, C. It exists, and there's a lot of potential out there. Growing our total base of customer, not just conversion. Grow the base. grow the base, grow the Omni base, having opportunities, especially gaining productivity. Sometimes you might not see it, but we see it since 2024. We're capturing and we'll be able to scale even more going forward. And of course, supporting in a big, gigantic space of digital with more profitability now, having the possibility to increase growth. Also, thank you so much. I finished now. BU Renner, our brand Renner, now invites Gustavo and Baroni to talk a bit about the other concepts and Yukon.
Vamos lá. Como
Let's
vocês
go.
viram,
As you
uma
saw,
estratégia muito bem
we have
detalhada,
a detailed strategy for Renner S.A. that we saw more details, the strategy of Renner,
que é uma de nossos conceitos.
which is one of our concepts for the strategy. Part of the strategy is how to expand the core, not just Renner. Renner is very important, yes. But for us to expand the core means also to evolve the other concepts, because this way we can meet demand and opportunities that are specific of our customers, over 20 million customers that Fabio explained, and even more going forward. The concepts are strategic pillar, and we do this in a disciplined manner, following three big stages. The first one, the understanding of the opportunity, how we can understand the customer. We are the fashion brand that understands the most the customer, the trends of our base, and the potential of Brazil. From there, we can do experimentations. We have a fortress of international sourcing that we can use to test, experiment, be it in existing concepts or new potential concepts. For Renner and its capillarity can be used to do a store-in-store, a way to experiment fast using all of the capillarity that we have. To scale the concepts, existing concepts and possible future concepts, we use this investments, platforms, technologies, digitalization, and data. The entire supply model that we apply in all the concepts, it leverages the ecosystem. We have a unique position in the market to accelerate the current concepts and potential new concepts for the future. UCOM is an example, an organic example created many years ago that is successful, that went through these three stages. UCOM is a case. It's a way to look at the process in a way that works and can be replicated. We don't have just UCOM and Renner. We have an ecosystem with different concepts, each one servicing a different public with a growth strategy that's adequate. Today, we're talking about Renner and UCOM because these are the ones that we see the next 5 years, generation of value, growth in a more accelerated manner, but all of them contribute for the growth of the ecosystem. To talk about UCOM, I invite now Baroni to explain the UCOM strategy for the next 5 years. Thank you, Gustavo. Thank you, everyone. My name is Claudio Baroni. I'm director of UCOM and Usher. It's a joy to me to talk about our UCOM. UCOM was born from a world reading, a reading of behavior, especially a reading of opportunity, market opportunity. It's this pyramid, the starting point. In the past, when we started to design the brand, this was the structure that started to connect the dots and started to make sense for us. UCOM was born exactly in the middle of this pyramid, but initially we divided the pyramid in two blocks. The top part, we put the specialized brands, brands that had certain characteristics, and the public that had certain characteristics, normally with a strong aspiration,
with a high experience, exclusiveness, higher prices. In the lower part of the pyramid, we put the big chains, the big networks. Here, the competition for price is higher, elasticity is harder, scale is important, and brands that have a high reach. They reach many people, many consumers. As I said, Ucom was born exactly in the middle of the pyramid, not as a middle ground between the two universes and the two worlds, but yes, as a big opportunity, a territory where we can deliver an experience and an aspirational that are so strong as the top group, quality perceived that is interesting. It's important for a team and for a public. Prices that we understand are higher than the lower group, but more accessible than the higher group. With time, Ucom starts to gain a bit of the strength from the bottom group, more with more scale and more reach. Ucom is getting to more people, young people. Now, an important design for the brand, our heart, our core, everything that we do in the company, we do through this design that initially was done in 2018, 2019. In the middle of the heart, there's a word that defines UCOM, which is young. In the, around the heart, we have the main attributes and all the areas of UCOM. When we think about creating anything, we create from here. I'm going to talk about some attributes, and I won't list all of them, but UCOM is fashion and lifestyle. Our target audience is between 18 and 24 years old. Obviously, they interact and buy the brand 13 years old, 14 years old, 28, 38, 48 years old, because they identify with the young lifestyle. I also bring that everything we do is looking at what happens in the world. We have a lot of global inspiration, always bringing for a local translation. Why? Because the youth in Brazil has their own code, their own DNA. UCOM understand and speaks this language. Destination jeans is our key category. We are moved by it. Jeans is a young, fresh raw material that's 70 years old, but it continues to be relevant in the young people's closet. It's a big uh, it's a great piece for the fashion for this public. What makes us very proud is responsible fashion because the public commitment from Renner S.A. are public commitments of UCOM. Moving on, I remember you that the first stores, UCOM stores, started in 2013 to test a hypothesis, the same hypothesis we had in the center of the pyramid. Once we tested the hypothesis, we start to scale the brand. This plot shows the evolution from 2014 to 2025. Sales are in concept September LTM. In yellow, I have the evolution of the stores, plots that show a constant evolution, how much the model is strong, and how the model is scalable. Now, this speed was only possible because we have worked a lot to make things happen, more than talking about the past. It's important to talk about the next cycle. We have four big pillars, four big avenues that will pave our future. First one is the opening of stores. We understand that the next cycle will arrive at 260, 290 stores in operation. We have 152 currently. We understand that the digital has an importance in UCOM. It will gain more importance. For the youth, it starts, he connects to the world through digital. Regarding the brand is gaining strength, it's becoming robust. The brand evolved a lot. We have a clear plan, robust plan, so that the brand continues to gain strength and reaches new territories with the years.
And lastly, I would like to highlight to you the importance of productivity and the increase in sales areas. We have a large number of new stores. This year only, we opened 17 stores. When you look at the all the new stores, you know, there's like 30% of those stores are at the initial cycle of evolution in terms of productivity, but they will continue growing. We're gonna invest in it. On the other hand, we are all stores, they have enormous potential with major results, major sales per square meter, and with profitability. In these cases, we can negotiate, we have some ambition. Something really important for the brand. I'm going to show you something here. In 2013, we opened a store in the Amália Franco shopping mall with 110 square meters. After some time, it evolved, it grew in productivity, it became more profitable, and then after 5 or 6 years, we got to 190 square meters. We evolved a lot, we increased the area, got bigger and larger, and the store became more profitable in terms of sales. And 2 months ago, this store was reopened with 350 square meters. So we have done very important things to increase the size, expand the physical spaces of stores. This happens because, the brand is more mature and also because the market mix has been evolving. Also, all that was only possible because Yukon is part of a robust ecosystem which is very, very strong, offering us several advantages, very important advantages. Some of them are here, like SKU 100%, fulfillment 100% by SKU, international sourcing, technology and data, and shared services. Those are some of the examples. On the other hand, UCOM plays a leading role in the ecosystem. We make things fresh, we have a young base, and we bring them to the ecosystem, and we contribute to with a number of things. But the most relevant of all those things is that UCOM has created a model which is specialized store which could be replicated. This is important, an exchange between brands and ecosystem. I mean, look at the exchange and the evolution. I see the future, and the future can be brilliant and bright. And now, just to wrap up, I want to bring you some figures which make us very proud. Our base, we have over 1.7 million customers, an active and solid base. It's been growing in terms of quantity and quality. When we look at NPS, either transactional, either competitive, we operate in the zone of excellence better than the other players, be them specialized or massive players. And NPS shows how much customers recognize our efforts, our dedication, and most importantly, the consistency of the brand. In relation to social media, Yukon performs a lot better on social media. And I'd like to mention something here. When you look at 2025 TikTok, Yukon, among the specialized fashion brands, we are the brand that shows more engagement than the others. Here we got the customer base, extra information, but Yukon is much more than that. It's much more than numbers. We have building things in our everyday life. We got a very large base of young customers. They interact, they purchase, they buy, they take an active role, and they identify with the brand. So that's all I had to say. I'd like to invite you guys to watch a video of our brand, of Yukon. Kids are always changing, and so is Yukon, because this is what it's like to be a brand. It's to be getting updated every day, to know what's happening in our lives and on social media, and obviously jump on TikTok, trends first.
e viver a rua no ritmo da playlist perfeita. É estar onde o jovem está, seja colando no lugar certo para se conectar com geral ou botando a mão na massa para criar o melhor rolê da vida. Aquele que você precisava e só não sabia ainda. E para arrasar nesse ou em qualquer rolê, a gente tem tendências que todo mundo quer experimentar. Porque sabe mostrar como um look transforma tudo. O resultado não podia ser diferente. Uma verdadeira comunidade que chamamos por aqui de Yukon Lovers. E o Minota é a prova viva disso. Mandamos mimos para os mais engajados das nossas redes. Essa galera está se tornando cada vez mais consciente sobre nossas iniciativas sustentáveis. Isso é transformar a moda e o que está ao nosso redor com muito orgulho. Vai saber o que mais vem aí. Bom, seja qual for a próxima transformação, a Yukon tá de olho e vai junto com a galera. Yukon, você transforma a moda transforma você.
Pronto.
Done.
Obrigado.
Thank you. Now I want to wrap up with this session, and I would like to invite our CFO, Daniel Santos, to come to the stage. Good morning, everyone. Okay, let me make adjustments here. First of all, thank you for being here. It's a great pleasure to see you here in our home. Well, I'm going to talk a little bit about how this financial journey is going to look like, how we can monitor that to generate value. And first, before I touch on talk about this new cycle, I would like to invite you to talk about the past, because the growth cycles that we had in the past will help us understand what we expect from this new cycle. The first cycle runs from 2010 to 2019. In this cycle, the company grew 14%, mostly by sales areas. Our area expansion got almost 3 times as large. We opened stores in new cities, in major cities, major urban areas. It became really dense. And when things get really dense, sales per square meter in physical stores, they grew less than the inflation, because we had cannibalization. The new stores ended up taking over the old stores. The investments, we invested 9% focusing on the new stores. And on the next cycle from 2020 to 2023, we grew 8%, which was mostly boosted by the digital sales. It went from 4% to 14% digital share, almost 3 times as much. And another feature of this characteristic of this cycle that Fabio mentioned earlier were the investments that we made in new capabilities. Those capabilities were intended to make the company more agile, more flexible, and more competitive. And I'm going to get into some specific details here of this new investment cycles, where we make investments in, where we made investments in. We had a total investments of 2 million reais in that cycle. We invested in capex and opex also. And when we look at the investment blocks here, and for a digital share in terms of capabilities, we investing in a new omnichannel platform. We invested in it. We invested in new features either on the website or on the app. We digitalized our fashion development in logistics. As Iris mentioned earlier, we have a new distribution center, but not only the center, but the new model, like the fulfillment by SKU, and our distribution center of Cabriúva, it supports our expectations for this new cycle until 2030. It has been built purposefully for that. And then data analytics, we use artificial intelligence applied to automation, process automation, and decision making, and structures and skills. We have the new data service, technology service, technology divisions to support the AI journey. CRM, we have a studio. Yeah, this very building. This video makes like very several content, several videos, and we made investments in the digital structure. And I want to build on what Fabio mentioned. Well, these investments, they give us a result. But when we look at the evolution of the past 2 years, we grew more. Our total sales as a group, the omni sales, combining retail, physical retail, and digital stores, it grew 19% per square meter. We became more profitable with a gross margin of 2% in the same period. Expenses on sales decreased 1.1%, and our EPS grew 59% in the period. When we look at the capital structure, higher returns, our cash flow went from 0.7 billion to 1.5 billion. The financial cycle, of course, specifically inventory days, less 15 days, and our ROIC aligned with our structured capital, it grew 4.6%. So that's an evolution that makes us really confident that with the new cycle, which I'm gonna bring information for you now. What do we expect from this new cycle? So first of all, we expect to increase, grow, generate value, have more profitability. And as I said earlier, we expect to grow from 9 to 13%. And this growth will be basically come from Renner, like in terms of area expansion, store productivity. They will result from area expansion, store productivity, and increased digital sales. It will also be boosted by BU Ucom with investments of 6.7% over the course of this period. Now, I would like for you to take a look at this slide. Let's talk about these growth levers, the expansion model, in new cities. Gustavo said something about it. We can see opportunities from 150 to 170 cities in which we can open a new Renner store. This is shows a high quality demand. High quality demand is like a demand involving the social group that we operate on. And so if we apply the average share, we can have like an incremental opportunity of over 2 billion reais, incremental sales without cannibalization, given that in these cities we're getting into, there is no in cities that don't have a Renner store. Something very important here, 90 of our stores, we have stores over 90 in cities with a population of over 200 million people. This is not a new model. It's been going on for a while, very successfully. Some indicators here that I can talk about, the profitability indicators. When we talk about this group of 90 stores in those 90 cities and compare them with the others, first of all, they have a gross margin which is superior. Second, they have a cost of operation per square meter which is smaller, lower than the other stores. And combined with the fact, co- combined with the idea of essential store, they have all those features, all the items that are necessary for us to succeed to delight the customer. With a capex per square meter is super competitive, and the combination of all those factors allows us to have a ROIC, a return on investment, which could be of up to 2% above the other stores. We obviously we have an SKU model of fulfillment which propelled this new model of expansion. We have a capability to feed these stores with more precision, with like a personalized assortment for them. without a shade of doubt, this can propel the performance of these new stores. Another point here is our omnichannel. So let's think a little bit about the evolution of this omnichannel. When we look at the past, the digital channel had like a 3% percent share in it. And then one of the characteristics of that is the cost of serving above the physical store. And several investments that we made in from 2020 to 2023, and actually the last movement that we made when we internalized the digital into the Cabreúva distribution center, it allowed us to reach the end of 2025 with a cost of serving which is similar to the cost of serving in physical stores. So for the company, for the journey that we have ahead of us, the company will be, it doesn't matter for us, customers can decide where they want to buy and purchase, either in the digital store or the physical store. Our expectations, well, in terms of growth, we want to grow with the digital channel above the average. This will propel all the other items that my peers have mentioned earlier. Another point of growth here is the productivity gain. Well, productivity, omni-productivity, and Fabi said something really important about it in her talk. Omni-productivity is a combination of our growth from the digital aspect with the increase in growth in physical stores. Why is that important? We see, over throughout this journey, in the first cycle, things became really, really dense. We got new stores very close to the existing stores. In the second cycle, we converted the clients, they began to share their sales journey on social media. And then lately, the managed to boost, they managed to show a productivity gain in omni-productivity, of course, which is quite irrelevant for what we expect. And we are confident that it will continue to be this way. And on top of that, in addition to the productivity gain in mature stores and digital sales, we have the expansion into new cities, which I believe Gustavo Aza and we mentioned earlier. And this productivity gain is a major element of our journey, profitability journey. This productivity gain will allow us to boost our operation and allow us to continue reducing the expenses on income, on revenues. Let us not forget Realize, Paulo talked about it. First, the major focus of Realize is to help retail, is to boost, propel retail with an integrated journey, as Paula mentioned. Have the integration of Realize with the retail, bringing experiences and benefits to clients in a way that Realize could help us increase our customer base and make the existing customer base purchase more and more frequently. Another point that Paula mentioned is the execution of this strategy. How we're going to do that? First, we're going to look for low-risk customers, focusing on the portfolio, focusing on the purchase, on the sale at Renner, at the store. And our expectations concerning the operating results is that it will be around from 8 to 12% of the total EBITDA in the coming 5 years. Youcom, as said earlier, sales growth higher than Renner. We expect Youcom to be above the average and increase profitability. So basically, expansion of stores, the example that Bruni mentioned, they're older stores. We need to expand them, and so we have a incremental sales, incremental share in the digital channel. As for profitability, we have gross margin gains and then operational leverage. This is the fruit of our labor, we can say here. we almost we almost have like twice as many stores over these past years.
We expect from Camicado a growth above the average of the market where Camicado is located because it's home decor. This growth will come from expansion of stores, selection of stores, and remodeling of stores, and a continuous increment of the share of digital sales inside Camicado. Regarding profitability, we expect that Camicado will follow to continue to grow in profitability. Camicado, we remember in the last Universal Day, we presented the team the great success in the execution strategy through their own brands, exclusive brands. Also, today from the sales of Camicado, around 85% of sales are their own brand or exclusive brands. This allowed, besides the customer experience, that is a lot more delighted with the sorting that we have that's different, allows a differential of the sorting we have versus what we have in the market, gaining profitability or sales per square meter when we compare to the base of 22, increased in almost 27%, and our gross margin increased 5.2 percentage point in the period. Adding now, looking at the indicators that we follow in this journey, first reminding you the big objective of the strategy is to scale growth and value generation with profitability, and the indicators that will guide our journey that we shared as a relevant fact earlier today was first the annual growth of a retail revenue of 9 to 13% during these 5 years. Second, continuous gain in gross margin. The representativity of retail expenses on top of the expenses in retail, we expect a reduction 2.5 to 3.5 percentage points for 2030 compared to 2025. This journey is the objective we have until 2030. Margin, EBITDA, retail, pre-FS, close 2030 in the range of 15 to 20%, above 18 to 20%, above the period pre-pandemic, more efficiency of capital, be it, as you observe, CapEx that we expect is lower than the growth in sales. So we have efficiency regarding the fixed capital of the company, also the financial cycle, especially motivated with the gain of inventory days. With this, we reach a return on capital of 20% by 2030. This is when we add all the indicators, brings us to this big evolution in return of capital. Talking about capital structure now, first, let's look at the trajectory of the company. First, the company has a strong balance sheet. When we observe the last 4 years, there was a lot of work of lowering the level of debt and keeping the level of cash flow that we believe is adequate to run the operation, be it the retail. Have a strong, consistent cash generation above a million. We were able to do a strong distribution of profit to the shareholders. If you look at the last 4 years, this shows that we returned 4.6 billion highs through interest on our own capital, IOC, or through repurchasing plan. In the year of 25 was 1.7 billion reais. When we add everything that we did this year with JCP that we communicated this morning earlier, we have 1.7 billion, more than 100% of the profit expected for the year of 25. Moving on, when we look at this new cycle of growth that we expect, first, growth with gain in productivity, gain in profitability, CapEx around 6.5 to 7%. What we have as a result, this will gain
generate profitability, we generate strong cash flow, and we believe we will do a capital distribution of profits to our shareholders above the market average. How will we do this? A bit for us to understand the logic of how we're going to do this. First, we have we will continue to have a strong balance sheet that allows us to have flexibility and prudency. We want to execute first the plan that we presented to you and the eventual opportunities that we can see in the next 5 years. At the same time, have consciousness of the cyclical business seasonality. It's a characteristics of our business, and we must be flexible. Besides this, to deal with political environment or macro environments that are diverse that we can have in Brazil, all of this gives us the clarity that we need to have a strong balance sheet and have flexibility to operate in this environment. The plan that we presented to you is a plan where the generation of cash that we have in the period, we can sustain it with the cash generation itself, 7.5. If the CapEx is absorbed with the strong cash generation that we have in the period. This way, we don't need to leverage to execute the plan that we presented to you. What would be our strategy of capital distribution? First, we will prioritize JCP IOC. So there's a fiscal benefit that's important. We will exhaust the IOC first. We will complement the distribution of dividends and or a repurchasing plan, always limited to the profit reserves that we have and or our minimum cash. This is necessary. The company believes it's necessary for the retail operation and the financial institution operation. Another important point, we have seen some provocation regarding leverage for an eventual distribution or capital. Continuously, we do internal exercises to look at our capital structure to see if it's optimized or not, to see the best way to give return to the shareholders, especially leveraging and reducing capital. We evaluated, and the conclusion was it doesn't make sense. It doesn't bring benefits for the company and for the shareholders in this moment, given the high interest rates of the moment. What we expect for the next 5 years is that we can have a distribution of our profit from 50 to 80%. And an example of the trust and commitment with this logic that we just presented to you, we communicated this morning. First, the finishing of the plan that we started in February 25, we executed 94% of the plan, exhausting the reserves that we had to be distributed. We exhausted 1.7 billion, allowed us to distribute in this period, exhausting the reserves that we have for distribution, relying on the profit generated in the next periods. We communicated a new plan at the same size as the previous plan that will be executed the next 18 months as we generate new reserves that can be distributed. I finish my part here. I invite Fabiana to talk to us about the next steps. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Danielle. Well, we will start now our Q&A session. Remember, those that are connected online can ask their questions clicking on the Q&A button, sending your questions in writing. The ones that are in person, just raise your hand. Let us organize ourselves. Let's bring everybody to the stage. We bring the mic to you. First, tell us your name, the institution that you're part of, and the questions that we cannot answer here today, please send it to the RI email, and we will answer them later. I invite to the stage Fábio, Danielle, Fabi, Paula, and Iris,
All the executives that came up here today are very close to us, available to answer specific questions you might have.
Não tá. Não tá funcionando. Agora.
Bom dia. Eu sou Bob Ford,
Good morning.
Parabéns pela apresentação.
Congratulations for your presentation.
Como você vê a
Fabio,
evolução
how do you see the
mercado?
evolution of the market
Quais
structure?
concorrentes tiramos só
And
para
what
a próxima?
competitors
E onde você
do
vê
you
a
have?
Whitespace
Where
como
do you see
conceito
white
novo
base
e
as a new
poder
concept,
maximizar
and
seu
how we should
mercado
think
nicho
about the
lifestyle
addressable
de price
market,
points e lifestyle
incremental
de uma
price
marca
points,
nova?
and lifestyle of a new brand?
Obrigado pela pergunta e pela presença,
Thank you
Bob.
for your question and for your
Acho que o
presence.
mercado ele
I
está se
think that the
movimentando, né?
market
Acho que a maior
is
movimentação
making a
foi no
movement.
período
The biggest
de
movement was in the
pandemia e pós-pandemia,
pandemic and the
né? Com o uso
post-pandemic moment, the
players
entry
de modelos
of
distintos, né?
players, different model players. Digital
Acho que ele
growth was very
se
strong.
reorganizou bastante.
The market
Vê
reorganized itself. We
crescimento
see
cada vez maior
growth,
dos players
a higher
formais, né?
growth
Dos
of the
grandes
formal
players,
players and the big
e
players,
entrada de novos players.
entry of
Obviamente,
new
nós vemos que o
players.
mercado ele é
As we showed,
muito
the
grande,
market
né?
is
E ele ainda é
huge.
muito pulverizado.
It's
E ele
still
ainda é
very
muito informal.
pulverized. It's still very
Então, tem um
informal.
espaço
So
muito grande
there's
para a
a
entrada
lot of
de players
space
formais,
for the
né? E
entrance of
crescimento.
formal players and for
E tem
growth,
espaço para todo mundo, né?
and there's
Agora,
space
acho
for
que nós
everyone.
estamos posicionados
We are positioned
melhor do que qualquer outro player,
better
né?
than any
Porque
other
se a gente olha
player,
para o
I
Brasil
believe.
ali,
If we look at
82% da venda
Brazil,
de moda está no
18% of
digital,
the fashion sales is in
83% está
digital,
no físico.
82% is
A
in
gente
brick
está no
and
físico e no
mortar.
digital,
We
entre
are in
outros
brick and mortar
players que
and
estão
digital. We see a
só no
few
digital
players
ou só no
that
físico.
are
Então a gente tem
just digital or
potencial
just
de
brick and
capturar
mortar.
ambos, né?
We have the potential to
Outro
capture
ponto
both.
importante, né, que eu acho
Another
que
important
outros
point
também
when we
atuam
look at
nisso, acho
the
que
others that
a
act
gente
on
investiu
top of
mais,
this,
a gente tem
we
mais
invested more,
capabilities,
we
a
have
gente tem
bigger
capacidade instalada
capabilities,
para crescer com
installed
eficiência,
capacity to
né?
grow
Então,
with
isso nos
efficiency.
permite
It
um
allows us
potencial importante,
to
né,
have
de
an important
crescimento,
potential
tanto para
in
os
terms of
conceitos atuais
growth
que nós
for the
temos,
current
né,
concepts that we
e
have
crescimento futuro
and
de outros
future
conceitos, né?
growth
A gente
of
trouxe aqui o
other
caso
concepts. We
da
brought the
Yukon,
case
às
of
vezes a gente
UCOM
ouve
here because
algumas
sometimes we
narrativas de
hear
puxa,
some
você não
narratives
consegue
of,
criar
oh,
uma
you
marca.
cannot create a
Nós criamos
brand.
a marca de moda
We
mais jovem,
created the
a marca
youngest
de moda jovem
fashion
mais forte do
brand,
Brasil
yeah, the
internamente,
strongest
né?
youth
Hoje
fashion
a
brand in
Camicado foi
Brazil
uma
internally.
aquisição, repassa
Kamikado
por uma
was an
aquisição, mas
acquisition, and
Yukon e
Repasa
Ashua
was
nasceram aqui
also
dentro, né?
UCOM and
Então tem
Ashua
tudo isso, né?
were
E tem
born
um
in
potencial de crescimento elevado. E um
UCOM
posicionamento de um lifestyle jovem. A gente tem
of a
vários
youth
segmentos de lifestyle
lifestyle.
que a
We
gente
have
trabalha dentro
many
da Renner,
lifestyle
com
segments
potencial de
inside
crescimento
Renner
dentro da Renner.
with
Isso a
the
gente
growth
mostrou
potential
aqui,
in
foi o
Renner. We
pessoal
showed
da
this
BU, no
Fabi
painel da BU Renner.
and
Mas
the guys
também
at
temos potencial
but
de
also
crescimento em novos conceitos, como é o caso da Yukon. Aí é um
UCOM.
lifestyle. Tem vários
That's a
outros aí,
lifestyle.
por
There are
exemplo,
many
assim, que já
others. For
trabalhou dentro da
example, the
Renner,
ones that we have
podem
worked on
ser
in Renner
conceitos futuros
can
de
be
negócios
future
especializados
concepts of
com
specialized
potencial de crescimento
business
também.
with the same potential for growth
O
also.
que opina sobre perfumaria e
Your
maquiagem?
opinion about makeup and
Já que a gente fala de moda e lifestyle, são
perfumery.
as categorias
When we talk
correlatas,
about
né? A gente
fashion and lifestyle, these are
tanto dentro
correlated
de Renner
segments
quanto
inside
oportunidades
Henner
futuras, a gente
and
vê
future
aqui em
opportunities.
Renner um
We
potencial
see,
de
especially
crescimento,
in Henner, the
seja na
potential to
moda,
grow, be it
seja na beleza,
fashion, be
né?
it
Acho que
beauty.
é o nosso core.
It's
A
our
gente tem
core.
potencial no que a gente
We
já
have
faz e no
potential
que a
in
gente
what we
pode fazer
already
ainda
do
dentro do
and
nosso
what
core,
we can
expandindo o
do
nosso
in our
potencial.
core, expanding our potential.
Obrigado,
Thank you.
Bom dia a
Thank you,
todos.
Bob.
Obrigado pela
Good morning.
apresentação,
Thank you
pela
for this
introdução
presentation,
completo. João
for
Soares
the
do
complete
Citi.
update.
Eu tenho dois
I'm from
pontos aqui,
Citi. I have
mais
2 points,
financeiros.
more financial.
Primeiro, queria explorar
First,
um pouquinho
I want to
essa
explore
melhora
a
da
bit
despesa
the
no
improvement
varejo,
in the expense
3,5 a 3,7 pontos
retail,
percentuais.
2.5
O quanto
percentage
disso
points.
vem de
How
alavancagem
much
de
of this
operação?
comes
A gente
from
entende que até
operational
agora
leverage? We
o
understand that
grosso,
up
né,
to
da
now,
mensagem em
the
relação
big
à
part of
melhora
the
de
message
despesa, né,
regarding
de
the
distribuição vai
expense
vir via
improvement, the
alavancagem de
dilution would
operações
come
menos
through
por ações
operational
ativas de
leverage,
cortes de despesa.
unless
Então, eu queria ouvir um
the
pouco
cut of
sobre o
expenses. I want to
quanto
hear a
isso aqui
bit
mudou um pouco, se você já
if
viu
it
isso pela
changed a
eficiência,
little
os
bit, if you're
cortes, enfim.
seeking
Seria interessante falar da reunião. A
efficiency.
gente, acho que
It
queria
would be
abordar isso
important,
aqui.
Fabio, Daniel, to
Fabi,
mention this here.
desculpa.
Fabi,
Quero
Sorry.
falaram na Realize sobre a Paula.
Paula.
Desculpa, Paula. Perdão.
Sorry, Paula. They're
Falaram-
similar.
Já foi a Fabi também. Tem
Desculpa.
parentesco, tem parentesco.
There's
Não,
yeah,
Paula
they're
da
related.
Realize, acho que é legal, enfim, falar
Paula
também
from
do
Realize, it would be
varejo, né?
interesting to talk
E
about
outra, só
retail
uma coisa
also.
rápida. Esse
Just one more
50%
quick
de
thing,
payouts,
70%
que a
of
gente pensa,
payout
vocês estão
that
passando,
we
também dando
think
soft guidance nos próximos
you're
anos.
giving
Mas acho que é
soft guidance for the
importante
next
a
years. It's
gente entender assim,
important
olhando o ano que
to
vem, olhando
understand, looking at next
principalmente
year,
essa discussão que a gente está tendo de
especially the
imposto,
discussion we
que é o
have in
quanto
terms
que
of
isso aqui
tax,
pode
how much
traduzir
this
talvez em
can
dividendos extraordinários,
be an
quanto que isso
extraordinary
aqui inclui também
dividend, how
buyback.
much
Acho que é importante separar o que é
buyback,
buyback, que é dividendo. Isso acho que é um
what is
ponto
buyback?
super relevante. A gente tem visto
I
várias
think it's
empresas
very
abordarem.
relevant. We've seen
Obrigado.
many
Desculpa,
companies
Paulo,
talk
que
about this. I'm sorry, Paula.
Obrigado pela pergunta, João. Acho que
Thank you
a
for your
primeira
question,
parte da
João.
pergunta
The first part of the question
pouco de tudo, né? Você falou
is a
aí
bit of
parte
everything.
diluição
You
por
talked
crescimento
about part
alavancado,
is
uma parte
dilution due to
redução
growth and
nos pontos
leverage, part
específicos,
is
uma
a
parte
reduction in
também na
specific points,
Realize,
and part is
otimização da
Paula
Realize.
said in Realize is
Vou pedir para
the
Daniel
optimization of
passar
Realize. I'm going to
mais
ask
uma ideia dos
Danielle
números que a
to
gente já tem falado
convey the
sobre isso.
numbers that we already
Na parte de
mentioned before,
distribuição
and the
também,
part
né? Acho que o
distribution
Daniel deixou
also.
claro
What
que
Danielle
neste
made
ano a
clear
gente
for
já
this
exauriu as
year,
reservas,
we
mas podemos
exhausted
falar
the
sobre os próximos
reserves, but we can talk about the following years also, Danielle. Yes, yes. Let's talk a bit about the distribution issue, João. First point, we saw a strong movement of a few companies doing exceptional distribution now, but all distribution is done with existing reserves. That's why I was very emphatic in saying that 1.7 billion and we exhausted all of our reserves. So there aren't new reserves that can be used this year because we distributed all of them in the year 25 with the results that were published until now. Now we are forming new reserves. When February, March, when we publish T4 and you compose new reserves, as we mentioned, the priority is IOC. Even with the new taxing, JCP continues to be the first most advantage option to distribute results. And after, as we communicated this morning, in the first moment, we have our repurchasing model that is activated, will be a way to distribute our reserves.
acho que sobre despesa, né? Então é uma
Regarding
componente
expenses,
das
it's a
duas,
component of
uma
both.
parte de diluição, uma parte de
We
redução, uma
have
parte da
a part
Realize,
of
né? Acho que
reduction, a part of
a Paula
Realize.
citou, né, Paula, que
Paula
o
mentioned,
balanço
right,
quer falar
Paula,
sobre
that the
26
balance
e
sheet, you want to
26,
talk about
27
26 and 27 onwards, of course. It's important when we look at Realize. In the last 3 years, we observed there was, in fact, a growth of M&A. M&A, that's important. What happens today in the finance year? We are in the middle of a digital transformation where we are having our technological catch-up because there was a technological issue in our platform. When you're doing a digital transformation, you continue with the run the business expenses while you're doing the investment of change the business investment. Should finish these parallel expenses between the second semester of 26 and the beginning of 27. And from 27 onwards, you will be able to observe that it will gain the capturing of efficiency from there on or level, especially the variable expenses related to processing costs, how much we can be efficient in our core business, no doubt will bring a volumetry SNA and total expenses of Realize to a healthier level than we see today. It's important to remember, even in the years where we are a little bit more compressed in terms of expenses, we are growing aligned to the inflation. So there's no relevant detachments that implies that we are concerned today with the financial expenses. We know we have opportunities and we're working strongly to capture them as fast as possible. Even with the platform change in case of Realize, there's nothing detaching from inflation, and we see an important reduction opportunity. The others, Danielle sometimes gives us a range of how much comes from reduction and scale. It's important, it's difficult range in reduction. The part of scale comes from scale. We're prepared to grow. If the growth comes from the lower range, it comes from reduction. If it comes from the upper range, it's more scale.
I have a quick question. Good. I'm Pedro Pinto from BBE. Oh, by the way, I want to say thank you for your presentation. Clear, but building upon his last question in terms of expenditures, let's look at it from a different perspective. Danielle said earlier, we talked about capital distribution. Let's talk about it may not growth may not reach like 9% or 13%. That's several reasons. There might be several reasons for it, and so our expenses will grow way above the revenues. How can you codify that? The expenses is very much related to what he said. I would like to understand this a little bit better. We have like downturn cycles. It's so cyclical. Would it be possible still to be efficient? And our second question is about Iris mentioned about supply chain. Supply chain was really big over these past few years, but today the capital of deployed has converged into these 20% of ROIC. Out of these 20%, I would like to understand a little bit about your stock demand. How much flow do you have there? So these are the two questions that I had. So I'm gonna start. Danielle, you can start as answering the very first part. Yes, even if there's fluctuation in terms of demands, yeah, that's why our metrics we use RANs as indicators, but we have the potential to reduce expenses over revenues, even if it's difficult for us. We anticipate our scenarios, but if that happens, also there will be situations and conditions to take this path. We have like more initiatives for reduction. But for your second answer, let's talk about expenses. What I think it's important, Pedro, is if we do not grow as much as we expect, we know that retail, part of it is variable. So basically, I always talk to Fabi about it. And this is a discipline, right? If you have volumetrics, obviously it will adjust your structure to the volumes you have. Obviously, part of your expenses are fixed, but they're not untouchable. So depending on the expectations you have, it's a cyclical thing or something that will take longer, given some macroeconomic perspectives, you'll have to make decisions to adjust it. But I think the important point here to remember is, I think I mentioned it, the company had the intentions to increase expenses. Why? Why did we increase it? Because, we were a company that operated 97% of our sales came from physical retail, and we needed to put together a digital structure for us to succeed and be competitive in an environment which is completely different from the environment of 5 years ago. It's important to talk about these intentions. Sometimes we treat these expenses as something we're not, maybe we might think we were not careful in our management. No, we were. You know, we wanted to highlight new structures that we have created, our new capabilities that we put in the game. And obviously, yeah, they added pressure to our results. We know that, but at the same time, they allow us, these results from these past 2 years show that, have put together a structure that allows us to continue growing and grow even more. Our distribution center, addresses the need of, let's say, the coming years. It can support the demand of the next 5 years. Several of these structures of today have allowed us to get into the digital sphere. 15% is much higher than our competitors. And as I said earlier, we managed to reduce the cost of operation of our digital platforms. We expect that the power of we continue growing. Yeah, we are ready for it. We are ready to generate growth and address this growth without increasing expenses. But obviously, there's efficiency in the game. Paula mentioned the example of Realize, but we also have that in retail. Out of all the structures and the forms of operations that we have, we know there are many things we can explore. There are internal discussions to execute and carry out these plans. At the same time, we can rely on growth depending on us, but also depending on the macro perspectives. We can also have internal discussions to generate efficiency, and this is stated in this roadmap. It's within the mission, from 2.5 to 3.5% of leverage for the coming 5 years. You also mentioned like stock flow. We want to reach like 4 times. We want to evolve, our stock. This is we have been very successful in that. All the things related to supply chain that I just mentioned will allow us to operate our stock more efficiently. The idea is to profit even more. Our benchmark shows that we have like a 4% per year, but we're gonna try to take that path. Thank you, Pedro. Good morning. I'm from BBA. Daniel, I got a question. Some people ask me, just want to make it clear, from 50 to 80% of payout up to 2030. Does that include buyback and JCP? Yeah, it does. That's why I didn't call it payout. We call it profit sharing. And so I got a question. If you simply replicate JCP figures that you mentioned earlier this morning, like 800 million reais, the approximate profit for next year will be 600 something, major figures. It will be, if you look at JCP alone, we're talking about like almost 50% of your payout. You must use that to maximize the results. So the implied reading is, the 2025 buyback will not be as relevant, given that with the JCP alone, you get like 50% of your payout. Does that make sense? Am I right? Your calculation, yeah. But Fabio mentioned it earlier, we still have the T4 results whose reserves will be available in February or March. I don't know. We're gonna double check it, but you also have the reserves that you'll generate at the end of the year. And so T4 is a very important year for the generation of reserves. And as I said earlier, JCP, it consumes like a very specific base in the surpluses. The idea is to execute the purchase plan roadmap, except un unforeseen conditions, of course. The purchase plan, we got a history, in our company. We have been very successful. But if there's like an external factor that makes us refine it or revise it or take a look at it, we are going to do it. Why not? Due to external factors. But the principles is we're going to repurchase these surpluses and you have 18 months to carry it out, including the year's reserves up until those that will be available in the 2027 T1 reference to the 2026 T4. So we carried out two in their full capacity, and so we announced the second, and we executed like 94% of it. And as we were almost done, I had a chance to, we announced the fourth that we want to carry out in 18 months. The third one, basically the first one, we did it in up to 10 months, like almost 100%. So we are the fourth period of 18 months. And as the reserves come in, the priority will be on the IOC, and then depending on the stocks and shares, we will try to repurchase, and this is very valuable to our stakeholders. And question from these 50 to 80% by up to 2030, is it a linear average, linear figures from 2026 up to 2030, or maybe it could be bigger in 2026 and lower in 2030? Well, I would say that in these past few years, we reached over 100% its entirety, Maybe every year it'll be like from 50 to 80%. Obviously, is an estimate, with our current plans, current roadmap. There is a plan that will generate a lot more value, some for stakeholders, shareholders. So the trend is it should be within this range.
Perfeito. E só uma segunda, eu já queria
A second
aqui correlacionar
question, it's related
o nosso
to the
guidance de hoje
guidance.
com
Today's
o
guidance
plano
is,
de incentivo
with
de
the
longo
new
prazo.
long-term
Quais são as
tax
principais
relief
métricas,
incentive plan.
desse
What are the
plano de
most
incentivo de
important
longo
metrics
prazo?
you've been using
Se,
for this long-term
naturalmente,
incentive
esses
plan?
guidance que vocês abriram para
And
a
what
gente já
about the
impactam
guidance that you're
de
using
maneira bem
today?
relevante
Do
essa
they already
remuneração de
have an
longo prazo de
impact
vocês.
on your long-term plan? I'll do the second part. Yes, they have an impact. Absolutely. I think our short-term and long-term remuneration are in line with the plan, with the roadmap. We can, Soto said earlier, we are working on right now, we're working on what we think is challenging but possible, of course. We're working on a plan roadmap that generates value to our stakeholders, and they must be in line. What about the metrics? Well, the metrics, Regina mentioned earlier, we have three metrics. Let's talk about the long-term plan. TSR, relative TSR, ROIC, and the third one is gigas per share. So if you think about in the period of 3 years, the strategic plan we have put together today and the metrics that are going to be used for them, they are all integrated somehow. So the goals we said obviously is going to be a long journey. They're going to be part of the metrics that will be presented later to the board to be approved and analyzed. So they're going to be making a decision in the beginning of the year for this 3-year cycle. Every year, obviously, we have new metrics and looking at what just happened and with new estimations of what is coming next. Sorry, one last question. In practical terms, the 3-year CLP.
Implícita no earnings per
So
share, né, que é uma das métricas que você
there is
mencionou, Daniel,
one of the metrics that you mentioned is
você
that
assume implicitamente,
you
por
assume
exemplo,
in
um CAGR de
place
receita
explicitly
de
a
9 a 13
CAGR
e uma margem
of per share
indo na
of
direção de 18 a
9%
20, isso
and a
está
margin of from
incorporado no nosso earnings
18
per
to
share.
20%. Is that incorporated into it? Yes, it is. It's embedded into it. I got a question. Eva, she's online. She's from Goldman Sachs. Here we have the examples of UCOM and the trust we have in the concept through the opening plan. We believe the time to scale of a new concept will be shorter, if we believe so. What are the takeaways in this sense? And she's got a second question, which is not related. I want to read it to you. Could you give us more details about whether we should think that productivity growth in our plan would be more driven by volume or price? I'll answer the first. You'll answer the second. Thank you for your question, Irma. I would say that, yeah, we learned a lot. If you look at the UCOM, we presented to you earlier, but only gave a presentation on it. It officially came to life in 2013, both like UCOM and Kamikado, which we purchased in 2011. I think those were the very first takeaways from the of the new concepts. We understand the way we see it is a growth leverage, very, very important growth leverage. We were learning, we're trying things out. We tried a lot, and then we scaled. And Baroni said that UCOM, not only is it an example of a brand, powerful brand, so is Kamikado, of course, but they show that our platform is ready for new concepts and new opportunities that could be scalable. So it's in the beginning we learned a lot, we tried things out, we did things we had never done before. Of course, from this moment on, time to be shorter. We're gonna have shorter time. We learned a lot, we are ready. We learned a lot from both to try them out, to scale them. And in the future, a new concept will be a new concept will be in place and grow even more. Price and volume, right? There is a component, a real price component, which would be the inflation, and the rest would be like a combination of volume and mix. On the one hand, we know there's volume in the game, but several initiatives that we are proposing, we could improve our sales mix. It's the value per part, per piece, per item, so it's a combination of both.
Eu acho que agora sou eu
I
aqui,
think
Dani, da XP.
me now, I'm Dani
Eu
from
tenho primeiro follow-up em
XP.
relação à
I have a
questão da
follow-up
dinâmica de
on
margem. Acho que a
the
gente não
margin
falou, acho que
dynamics.
quase
I
nada sobre
don't
margem
think you
bruta, né?
mentioned
E
about
aí
the
até na
gross
parte de
margin.
supply,
And
próprios
also
escravos, acho que
supply,
você dividiu,
the data that
mostra que o
Fabi
modelo
has
ele
shared,
mostrava esse
it showed
valor
that
por
the
causa
model,
da redução de markdown, enfim,
there's
essas
a
questões
reduction
juntas.
in the market
Então, vocês
down.
pudessem trazer um
But if you
pouquinho
could
a
give us
visibilidade de como vocês
some
enxergam margem bruta,
more
porque de
about
fato já
the
evoluiu
gross
bastante,
margin,
mas só para a gente
I know it has
encaixar essa
evolved, it
variável
grew a
que eu senti
lot,
um
but
pouquinho de falta.
I would like to
E
hear
aí
from you
a
guys.
outra é na
And my
Realize,
additional
Paula. Você
question is
comentou,
about
e aí deu uma
Realize.
impressão que até
You
por mais
said,
que vocês
no,
estejam focando
give me
muito
the
no on us,
impression that,
você trouxe mais
okay,
o
you're
co-branding
focusing
em
on the
evidência, né? Que
on
é o que
us,
traz
but you
essa
brought something related to
flexibilidade de você poder
co-branding, like more
oferecer o a plus.
flexibility to
Só
offer
entender o porquê,
of
assim, eu
us.
entendo que você trouxe essa
Why is
questão do
it?
tema dos
I
dados para
see you
saber,
brought the
enfim,
data to
mas a ideia é
Fabi,
que
show
se
them
tiver
over the data,
ambiente,
but
o
if you
almoço pode
could
ser
have the
melhor
environment,
explorado,
this could be better
e aí
explored.
também conectar com a
And
parte
then
de
can you
crédito,
connect it
né? A
with
gente já
the
está
credit appetite?
falando, obviamente tem
No,
sempre
we're obviously
volatilidade
talking
mesmo em
about
queda de juros,
volatility, but
mas como que
lower
vocês enxergam e o que faria
interest rate.
vocês
How do you see
aumentarem esse
that?
apetite aí
What
no
would
on us
make you
mesmo, o offers eu entendo que é
increase your
uma
appetite?
página depois. Obrigada.
Thank you.
Se for falar de margem, você fala da Realize.
Margin. You cannot talk about margin
Acho
without
que
talking
já
about
estamos falando de
Realize.
margem, né? A
I
gente
think in
já
terms of
tem falado
margin,
bastante que a
we
gente
have been talking a
enxerga
lot about it. We
um
see
potencial para um leve
great,
crescimento ainda de
great
margem, né? A
potential
gente
for
mesmo
a
já numa
slight
camada
growth
elevada de margem
and a
bruta,
higher and an
com
elevated
todos os ganhos do
point, of
modelo, né?
course,
Um
with
dos
all the
pontos que
gains of
direciona
this model
é a
that
gente ter mais giro de
allow it.
estoque, né?
We could have
Produtos que já
more
ganhamos muito, já
stock.
estamos girando mais,
We
né?
have
Produtos mais novos, com ganho de
gained a lot
produto,
from
então a
it,
gente enxerga ainda
but we see
oportunidade, né?
opportunities
A gente
here.
tentou
We
dar
try to
mais dados sobre coisas que a
show
gente
you
tinha
more
falado
data
menos
on
no
the things
passado,
that
né?
we
Então,
didn't talk
eu
much
falei do
about
custo da
before. I
rentabilidade,
talked about
que vem também
profitability,
da diluição das
which
despesas, da redução das
results from
despesas,
the
da
reduction in
diminuição do
expenses
comprometimento, mas
and
também vem do
commitment, but it
crescimento de
also
margem
comes
bruta,
from
que
the gross
a
margin
gente acha
growth.
que aí já é um
I
crescimento
think this
mais
is a kind of a growth
mais suave, né?
that is
Mas sem dúvida
slight,
crescimento de margem
but
bruta
we can
sim.
grow even more.
Tá? Falar sobre a Realize?
About as for Realize, of course, thank you for your question. Very smart. As we said earlier, have a new product. It's important that you guys understand the dynamics in your operations. Today, we have a portfolio that is concentrated on a co-branded card. Customers have a limit to spend outside of the company and in the company, but from 2020 up until now, concession of cards is very much focused on the private label. Why is that? It's important to share it with you that private label is unique. It's very important for credit modeling. It allows customers to purchase things on the ecosystem, and I can monitor their credit behavior. So today, out of 10 cards that we give in the store, this has been a while, a reality for a while. So 8 of them are private label. So for some other cases, we have some upper middle class customers. They also have like a Visa or a MasterCard card. He's got those labels, but they can operate it either only as a private label. There's going to be a limit, which is independent for on as consumption, and they'll have the prerogative to enable it at any time and increase the limit. So that's innovative in the retail sector because it reduces friction. Today, when I give a customer a private label, it's a lot. Gonna have new use plastic. There's embossing costs. So in terms of DNA, it's very good. So for risk management, it's got the possibility, gives me the possibility to give customers private label with the honest limit enabled. And as I see their credit behavior, I can open and I can expand this off us limit. It's very, very important both for the value proposal generation but it also gives the prerogative of knowing their behavior, in terms of consumption, bringing those insights to my credit model and also showing important elements for fashion consumption. And this will allow us to have a very adequate operation connecting retail and financial services. As for risk appetite, we have been working on a credit policy which is being able to support to deal with things very effectively. We were making like 28 or 29% of the sales, and we see there are opportunities here to expand this credit as the macro environment allows. Financial institutions, we are here to have a good risk management. We are ready for it. We have capital. We have an adequate model. It will depend on how it will move on. And remember, have more volatility next year. We are very consistent in terms of model, and with this new product, we are even ready to support the sales expansion.
Thank you, Danny. Congratulations for the event. I have three questions. Can you speak a bit louder? Jose, JP Morgan, thank you for the event. Congratulations for the event. Three questions. Looking at the last year and a half with the flywheel that you presented to us, future growth, usually for guidance, we have implicit a true growth of 4 to 5% without distortion, seeing that the incremental area of store is smaller than we saw before due to the profile. What I wanted to explore with you, looking at the tooling of CD, we're in more or less 1 year with CD almost full power. Looking at the level of efficiency, where do you imagine that you are? You talk about improvement of 3 points, availability of product at store. To where can we bring this to understand what it brings in terms of productivity? Asking to Fabi, she talked about freshness, 23% between the collection. Where we can do more when we look at the climate issue, it wasn't an issue as it has been in the last 2 years. You have an algorithm evolution. What failed? Do we have the comfort that in the next 5 years we have 13% growth? It was a consensus. Maybe it's 2 points below your guidance with similar expansion. Thank you for your questions. Would like to use the presence of the executives here. Alice can answer the first question about productivity, distribution center, Fabi. You can talk about freshness, responsiveness to climate issues. Okay. Thank you for your question. Do you hear me? Thank you for your question. It's important. I mentioned the distribution center is operational since 24. It was an important stage this year to finish the migration of e-commerce of Renner, bringing it to the distribution center. When I look at the efficiency that we have in the supply to the store, the curve is very advanced and the productivity capture. The productivity of e-commerce this year is maturing. We concluded the migration. We're going to capture gains in productivity. The next year, you will see an improvement in the logistic on top of revenue. We'll be seeing next year with the evolution, with the maturement. This also happens with the sourcing, the supply part. We have a curve. I showed the integration of systems with the suppliers is 50% in our supply base domestically. We want to increase this. This will bring important gains also in productivity in the sense of suppliers and connection with development and collections. We don't have an exact number of what is the curve, but I can tell you that e-commerce, there's still maturity to be reached in the logistics operation. Sourcing also, we're going to involve the integration with the suppliers, gain in productivity in the domestic chain, supply chain. Thank you. Yes, if we look in terms of capabilities, the company has it all installed. It has models, predictability, data. You have a system, functional system of building collections with methodology that's very strong. Would take a bit care to say The error was ours in terms of the decision, not the capability or the condition. You talked about an error, and I want to go back to this. We made a decision to buy excess in the winter. It's not always good. You don't deal with the next season always well. Looking at the short term, okay, it might have been an error in our minds, a loss in competitive advantage of that of that quarter with the growth of competitors. When you look at the full picture, and I'll draw your attention, you look at the film or the movie of the evolution of stock, the construction that's engaged, and the productivity that we leave open for the portfolio to really react in season. Capacity we have. We made a decision. You talked about a pain in the third quarter. You were talking about that, right? In the long term, we gained 25% of turnaround the last 9 months. We increased 1.9 gross margin with one of the highest margins in the fashion retail. And there's still evolution that Fabio has left. We continue to project for this cycle greater gain in turnaround, more reactivity. We depend on the productive capacity, but reducing the productive cycle is important. And we are having help. We have cases with for 20 main ones. We have a relevant percentage of reactivity, and of course, we will increment more. We gave the guidance of more or less leaving reactivity, but not only reactivity. The productive cycle, we expect again in terms of speed that will bring us the flexibility. To add here, as Fabi said, well, it's a decision. When we make a decision, we evaluate risk and return. You can lose a bit of sales, but you gain in margin or gain in turnaround, as she said. Of course, maybe looking at today, we can risk more, gaining more sales. Yes. This is an evolution for the model. We're talking about evolution. When we look at what will happen, we adjust and evolve in the processes and in the evolutions. We see how we capture even more the risk-return relation. I have a question from online, Daniela from HSBC. I think it's interesting the feedback and increase in sales that the refurbishing of the stores has brought. The other information, if we can share how many stores we want to refurbish in the last years. And her second question about the implementation, the FID. I want a summary of the gains that the implementation brought to the company. If you can tell us the areas and processes that count on this tool, if it's already 100% implemented. Well, I'm going to start with the last one, FID. It's hard to say the gain. It's an end-to-end model that made feasible since 2017. We started, if I'm not mistaken, we started and finished implementation of our FID 100% in the brand in 2017. Renner brand, since then, 100% implemented. It's not now in 2025. It was in 2017. The others, we're still evaluating the cost benefit and the return. What are the gains? I think it's enabler to have stock accuracy. We have seen the importance of having inventory stock that's inventoried frequently, to have accuracy of information, to manage the stock. Stock is one of our biggest asset product. It's a huge initial gain that we had in 2017, 2018. After that, also, it allowed us to have more speed in the
cashier queues. We were able to reduce the lines, the queues, having more products at once, and the work that allowed granularity in the DC to work SKU to SKU, we need to have stock accuracy. I would say it's a big enabler of the digital journey, of sorting, of stock turnaround, accuracy, governance, many points, but I don't think there's one indicator. It's an old project actually for us. The first part of the question, the refurbishing or renewals, we're going to give annual guidance of the investments per year. We validate this in the shareholder assembly. We propose this in each assembly. We're looking for a horizon in terms of expectation of what we have of capex on top of revenue. Probably two-thirds of it will go to store opening, digital journey, refurbishing or remodeling. And the two-thirds, probably a good part is for remodeling or refurbishing. Maybe in the beginning of every year, we can have a new horizon, a range of new stores. This year, we're gonna meet the range that we gave. We're opening some new stores at the end of the year. We talked about 37 stores, and we will meet this. And if we look at the range for the next years, that we didn't give a total per year, but we have a potential that we will let you know in the beginning of each year, maybe even be twice as big. It's not the same number every year, but it's an important potential. So refurbishing also bringing good results. We want to intensify the investment in refurbishing. Renewals. We decrease the cost per square meter. We decrease the cost of the renewals per square meter. We can renew more stores, spending less. If I can add, there's an important gain. It would be of RFID. It will bring productivity of per store operational. RFID allows us to get into the phase in management and the operation of the stores, all the pricing of the product or repositioning of product, operational parts of the store based in people. We gain a lot of productivity, and it will give us a gain in productivity. It will help the dilution of expenses, for example, the phase that we are using to gain the productivity. It's still a base. It leaves the customer and enters our operation and our gain. We got to the end of the Q&A. We're a bit late. I pass the floor to Fabio for his final words. Thank you, Fabi. Thank you, everyone. I would like to add, we received a few questions, and our intention here was to show what are our expectations and ambitions for the next years. I can answer a few questions to see how it's possible, if it's possible. Our intention was to show the ambitions, showing it's possible. Three questions that we received a lot, and I hope we answered here to give an example about that. One was more constant, a story of growth, of profitability, or distribution of values. If you grow, you burn profitability. You give profitability, you don't grow. If you distribute, you don't grow. We're trying to show here and make it very clear. It's a story of growth with profitability that's increasing and with distribution, because we generated a lot of value, generate so much cash and value that we're able to grow with profitability and distribution. This growth with profitability comes from the investments that we made in the past, the tests that we ran in the past, the things we did in the last years. That's why we brought these cycles also. And a question that some ask, well, but it's implicit here, because in the previous growth, you had a big growth in terms of area. It's implicit here, an important growth in terms of efficiency. Yes. Some might ask, but you didn't do this in the past, a growth coming from sales store bigger than in the past. True, it's true. Danielle showed here. We are already doing this in the last few years, despite being a big challenge, not just an intention. It is already real. Our growth in the last 2 years comes from this, and the initiatives that we were talking from now on is to maintain this growth and now bringing new leverages like accelerating once again the digital that is very profitable now. We balanced that out the last 2 years. It grew from 23 to 24. Now it gained profitability. Now it's ready to grow. We're ready to accelerate the expansion and to keep the good level of growth with efficiency. And a final question that I receive sometimes when we talk about expansion, acceleration also, why now? Sometimes people ask, why now? It's not, it's uncertain. Isn't it worth waiting a bit? Why now? Because the projects are great. They bring a lot of value to the shareholders. We are ready. Installed capacity is there. The team asking to move, and we're ready. That's why now. Well, I want to use the opportunity to thank everyone. We finished now our online event. Any questions, we're always available. Thank you, guys.